Chapter 702. I don't know him. How could I know this thief? Shingongbao said firmly. Then why didn't he come earlier or later? Why did he come when you were playing chess with Hui? And why didn't you come earlier or later? Why did you come when a thief came to steal the holy laurel fruit? The woman asked coldly. At this time, Hui also stared at Shingongbao with an arrow on his sun-shooting bow. Chang'e, don't misunderstand. This must be a coincidence, or this thief deliberately followed me here. Shingongbao saw Hui's unfriendly expression and the sun-shooting bow's amazing power, so he became nervous and hurriedly explained. Thief, do you know Shingongbao? Chang'e asked Xiaolingyu, who had been frozen in ice. Xiaolingyu heard Chang'e's words. He looked at Shingongbao and saw that Shingongbao's face was open and honest, without a trace of guilt. He said, Of course, I know him. He is my accomplice, ha. Under Chang'e's control, Xiaolingyu's voice came out clearly from the ice. Hearing Xiaolingyu's words, Shingongbao felt relieved, but his expression was still very nervous. He said, Thief, don't slander me. He admitted it so quickly. He must be lying. Hui said matter-of-factly. Chang'e also nodded, but she was still very suspicious. She asked Shingongbao, How do you think we should deal with this thief? This was the effect Xiaolingyu wanted. Although Shingongbao had betrayed him at this juncture, even if it was proven that Shingongbao was his accomplice, it would at most put Shingongbao in danger. It was better to let Shingongbao be safe first. Maybe Shingongbao would find a way to help him. At this critical moment, he must be calm and not let his emotions affect his decisions. Shingongbao pretended to touch his chin and said, This thief trespassed on Moon Mountain and stole the holy laurel fruit. Naturally, he is at your disposal. In my opinion, it is better to kill him directly. Well, let's kill him directly. Hui immediately pulled the sun-shooting bow into a full circle and aimed the arrow at Xiaolingyu. At first, Chang'e did not stop him. Seeing that Shingongbao was still calm, she patted Hui's arm and said, This bastard's strength is extraordinary. After your shooting sun arrow broke the ice, it may not be able to kill him. Instead, it helped him break the ice. Hui felt that it was reasonable. He removed the arrow from the shooting sun bow and asked, Then what should we do? Chang'e pondered for a moment and said to Xiaolingyu, Hand over the 4 holy laurel fruits and I'll release you from the mountain. How about it? Xiaolingyu replied without hesitation, If I hand over the holy laurel fruit and you don't let me go, wouldn't I be in even more danger? Chang'e frowned and asked, Then what do you think we should do? Xiaolingyu thought for a moment and said, I'll return 2 holy laurel fruits first. After you release the ice, I'll return the other 2 after I go down the mountain. Chang'e hesitated, but Hui said, What's the point of negotiating with this bastard? Release the ice now and I'll shoot another arrow. He'll definitely die. Chang'e angrily glared at Hui, Don't think of him as a simple person. Since he dared to steal the sacred laurel fruit, how could he not have the ability to protect himself? How could he not have thought of a way out? I dare say that as soon as I release the ice, he'll immediately disappear in front of us. Don't forget, we didn't notice him when he went up the mountain. I did, but you didn't believe me. You even told me to focus on playing chess. Hui complained. But later you didn't notice anything strange. Moreover, I didn't find any trace of this person when I came up the mountain. It's clear that this person has a very good hiding method. Chang'e added. Seeing Chang'e and Hui's hesitation, Shingongbao interjected, In my humble opinion, we can agree to this person's condition. Then he transmitted his voice to Chang'e, Wait until he goes down the mountain and returns the remaining 2 holy laurel fruits. With your methods, do you think you'll let him escape? Even if he escapes, your Moon Mountain won't suffer any losses. Chang'e replied, What if he doesn't return the 2 holy laurel fruits after the ice is released and immediately hides and escapes? What can we do? Shingongbao said, That's easy. Before you release the ice, plant a restriction on his body. No matter how he hides, he won't be able to escape from your telepathy. Chang'e and Hui discussed for a while. Since there was no other good plan, they agreed to Shaolin Yu's suggestion. Following Shingongbao's suggestion, they planted a very clever restriction on Shaolin Yu's body. At least for a short period of time, this restriction couldn't be removed by ordinary experts. Shaolin Yu also knew that there was a restriction on his body, but he still handed over the 2 holy laurel fruits first. Chang Yi then released Shaolin Yu from the ice and let him go down the mountain. It would have been safer to hide in the chaotic spectrum, but he would be trapped there. Anyway, there was no ice and he could go in at any time. There was no need to rush. Although Ho Yi's sun shooting bow was very powerful, it still needed some time to prepare the arrow. This time was enough for Shaolin Yu to hide. When he went down the mountain, Shaolin Yu had been thinking about a problem. Should he return the remaining 2 holy laurel fruits? If he returned them, not only would he not be safe, but he would also have wasted his time. If he didn't return them, how could he escape with Ho Yi and Chang Yi following him? Shingongbao still acted as if he had nothing to do with Shaolin Yu. Although he was following him, he didn't say anything. The reason why Shingongbao did this was that he was sure that Shaolin Yu had a very powerful magic treasure that could hide his tracks. He could definitely escape easily. Shaolin Yu could hide, but the key was that he couldn't escape. Right, if I suddenly disappeared, how would they know whether I escaped or not? Thinking of this, Shaolin Yu immediately hid in the chaotic spectrum when he reached the foot of the mountain. Shaolin Yu's sudden disappearance surprised Ho Yi and Chang Yi. How could he disappear into thin air? Chang Yi said in surprise. Quickly feel the restriction, Ho Yi reminded. I can't feel it, Chang Yi replied. Is there a problem with the restriction? Shingongbao asked. Although it was planted through the ice, there shouldn't be a problem, Chang Yi said with uncertainty. We actually let that thief escape. Ho Yi was very angry. He pointed at Shingongbao and said, it's all your fault. You actually persuaded us to agree to that thief's conditions and said that it would be fine to plant a restriction. Shingongbao said with a wrong face, how would I know that thief has such a brilliant escape technique? Chang Yi said calmly, he might not have escaped. He might still be hiding nearby. Then, Chang Yi said to Shingongbao, Ho Yi and I will look around. Please stay here and help us search. Shingongbao nodded at once and patted his chest, saying, as long as that thief appears, I will make him stay even if I have to risk my life. Then, Chang Yi and Ho Yi split up to search. Shingongbao pretended to search around with his divine thoughts and did not do anything unusual. Shaolin Yu waited in the chaotic spectrum while counting the time. After an hour, he suddenly came out of the chaotic spectrum and said to Shingongbao, let's go. Shingongbao was very clever. He immediately wrapped Shaolin Yu with his divine power and ran at full speed with his back to the Moon Mountain. Shingongbao, you really are with that thief. Shingongbao had just picked up his speed when he heard Chang Yi's angry rebuke. Shingongbao, take this arrow of your grandpa Ho Yi. Ho Yi roared as he loosened his finger. A rainbow-like arrow whizzed through the air. Shingongbao knew the power of the sun shooting bow. Without thinking, he threw a jade talisman behind him. Shaolin Yu had already taken out his tubular divine tool and was ready to use the greater teleportation. The jade talisman Shingongbao threw out turned into a golden shield in an instant, blocking the rainbow-like arrow. Boom! After the dazzling golden light, the golden shield suddenly exploded, but it also exhausted the power of the rainbow-like arrow. After the explosion, the greater teleportation of the tubular divine tool had been launched. Shaolin Yu and Shingongbao disappeared at the foot of the Moon Mountain. The greater teleportation distance was very far. Under Shaolin Yu's intentional control, the destination of the greater teleportation was the place where he and Shingongbao first met. Ho Yi and Chang Yi would not be able to catch up with them in a short time. What a pity, what a pity. I lost another immortal talisman. Shingongbao looked like he was in pain. It's good enough that you weren't shot by the sun shooting bow, Shaolin Yu said indifferently. Brother Shao, you were hiding. Why didn't you run away? Why did you show yourself and implicate me? Shingongbao asked unhappily. Shaolin Yu did not want to expose himself. The fewer people who knew that he could only hide and not run, the better. He just sneered and said, Taoist Shin, you still have the nerve to criticize me. I was the one who took the risk to steal the sacred laurel fruit. Do you think you can get the sacred laurel fruit by running to the Moon Mountain just by talking? And you want me to bear the crime of stealing the sacred fruit alone? Shingongbao did not complain anymore. He resumed his flattering smile and said, there are 2 sacred laurel fruits. Give me one. Xiaoling Yu did not say anything more on this issue. He took out a sacred laurel fruit and handed it to Shingongbao. Although Shingongbao was not a good person, he was a genuine immortal talisman and liked to scheme against others. Xiaoling Yu would rather offend a brave person like Hou than a cunning person like Shingongbao. Anyway, 1 sacred laurel fruit was enough for him. Now that I have the sacred laurel fruit, I have something else to do. I won't keep you company. Shingongbao had made up his mind that after the trip to the Moon Mountain, he would immediately part ways with Xiaoling Yu. Taoist Chen, take care. Xiaoling Yu did not want to associate with a cultivator like Shingongbao. Naturally, he would not ask him to stay. Chapter 703. After Shingongbao left, Xiaoling Yu asked Fudi to come out again. Sitting cross-legged on Fudi's back, he began to use his divine sense to check the map jade slip left by Shingongbao. After a long while, Xiaoling Yu put away the jade slip and instructed Fudi to adjust the direction. After nearly 3 years and several turns, Fudi finally stopped at the entrance of a huge valley with Xiaoling Yu on its back. At the entrance of the valley, there was a long bluestone with the words Lindong Square engraved in red. Lindong Square was a market. To put it bluntly, it was a market in the nearby area where the nearby cultivators exchanged cultivation resources. During the 3 years of traveling, Xiaoling Yu took time to inject energy into the vertical eye between his eyebrows. It was still 1/3 of his energy each time, and it was still more than 100 times before the heavenly eye of destruction between his eyebrows was full. It was also because he could activate the heavenly eye of destruction once that Xiaoling Yu dared to come to a place like Lindong Square where many powerhouses gathered. Unlike the market Xiaoling Yu imagined, Lindong Square was very deserted. He stood at the entrance of the valley for a long time, but did not see a single cultivator enter or leave. It could be said to be deserted. There were no guards at the entrance of the market, and it was completely free to enter and leave. Xiaoling Yu slowly crossed the entrance of the valley and entered the valley. It was also very quiet inside the valley. There were tall trees, but the trees were not dense or dense. Looking in all directions from the valley, there were cliffs that were so tall that one could not see the top. Waves of fog flowed down from the top of the mountain like flowing water, causing the entire valley to be filled with wisps of misty fog. Looking as far as he could, Xiaoling Yu took 20 breaths to see a cultivator. The cultivator seemed to be middle-aged and thin. He wore a long gray robe with his back against a big tree, as if he was sleeping soundly. In front of the cultivator, there was a rag with a few dull things on it. It looked like the cultivator was selling treasures. Xiaoling Yu walked toward the cultivator. Strangely, within 10 feet of him, the cultivator did not seem to feel anything and was still sleeping soundly. Even when he was close, the cultivator did not react at all. He just scratched his neck with his hand. Xiaoling Yu bent down and carefully looked at the few things in front of the cultivator. After a moment, he got up and moved away. Another one who doesn't know what's good. Unexpectedly, he had just taken 3 steps when he heard a disdainful voice behind him. Xiaoling Yu did not care about this kind of mockery, but there was no one around him, and he did not have a target, so he turned around and asked, Sir, are you talking about me? That cultivator didn't open his eyes and said indifferently, Is there anyone else here? Sir, I think you're as treating trash as a treasure. Bye. Oh? So that's how it is. Xiaoling Yu smiled faintly and said, Then, sir, tell me what kind of treasures you have. The rules of Lindong Square are that if you take a fancy to something, you can negotiate the price. The stall owner is not responsible for introducing his treasures, the cultivator replied. Lindong Square has quite a few rules. Xiaoling Yu glanced at the items on the rag again and said, Forgive my poor eyesight, but I can't see what's so praiseworthy about your items. After speaking, Xiao Yu turned and left. The cultivator did not ask him to stay and closed his eyes again. Xiao Yu walked around the valley for 2 hours and met a few other cultivators who had set up stalls. However, without exception, these cultivators were the same as the one he met first. The items they sold did not look good, but they did not take the initiative to introduce them. They all let Xiao Yu see for himself. These stall owners did not even offer a price. If Xiao Yu took a fancy to something, he had to quote the price himself. The stall owners would only comment on whether they were satisfied with the price. This kind of business was disadvantageous to the cultivator who bought the items. If he made a mistake, he might buy a defective item. Even if he bought the real or precious item he wanted, the price might be too high. In these 2 hours, Xiao Yu also discovered that unlike other places in the realm of the gods, the transactions on Heavenly Saint Island did not use divine stones as the general equivalent. If he wanted to buy something, he had to have enough Heavenly Spirit stones, and the price had to be calculated in Heavenly Spirit stones. Xiao Yu did not have a single Heavenly Spirit stone on him. Qiyu and Shingongbao had not mentioned this before. Without a Heavenly Spirit stone, he naturally could not buy anything. However, Xiao Yu found that there were more than 10 materials here that he just happened to need. Therefore, earning a Heavenly Spirit stone became his top priority. It was said that the Heavenly Spirit stone was a special product of Heavenly Saint Island. It was impossible to find it anywhere else in the realm of the gods. It was a crystal that Heavenly Saint experts needed for cultivation. The energy it contained was of a much higher grade than the energy of the gods. Heavenly Spirit stones were also different from ordinary divine stones. They were not mined from ore veins. Instead, they were nurtured by the special environment of Heavenly Saint Island and were buried deep underground. Moreover, they could move freely underground and were extremely difficult to find. Usually, a Saint God expert would need thousands of years to find a Heavenly Spirit stone underground if they were lucky. If they were unlucky, they might not find one even after tens of thousands of years. Compared to Saint Gods, Heavenly Saint experts had the ability to communicate with heaven and earth. It was much easier for them to find Heavenly Spirit stones. However, it would take them dozens of years to find one. Most of the cultivators who set up stalls in Lindong Square were Saint Gods. Xiao Yu walked around for another 4 hours. There was only one cultivator whose cultivation he could not see through. To the entire Heavenly Saint Island, Saint Gods were naturally not considered experts. However, the overall number of Saint Gods was extremely large. After all, the divine world was boundless, and there were countless races. Most races had Saint Gods, and Saint Gods yearned for Heavenly Saint Island. It was only after years of accumulation that Heavenly Saint Island had so many Saint Gods. If not for the many dangers on Heavenly Saint Island and the occasional fights between experts when they gathered together, there would probably be even more Saint Gods on Heavenly Saint Island. In fact, the true rulers of Heavenly Saint Island were the Heavenly Saint experts. However, the number of Heavenly Saint experts was not very large. Xiao Yu's storage ring had a very rich collection. There were many Saint artifacts and Saint pills, not to mention Saint grade materials. After walking around Lindong Square for so long, Xiao Yu discovered that Lindong Square mainly sold Saint grade materials. Their value ranged from a few hundred to 10,000 divine communication stones. Thus, he followed the others and found a large tree to set up a stall. What he did not expect was that less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea, a late-stage Saint God cultivator came to his door. You have to pay 100 divine communication stones to set up a stall in Lindong Square. Every year, you have to pay a divine communication stone. How long will you be setting up a stall? Asked the visitor. Xiao Yu frowned slightly. Without a divine communication stone, he could not even set up a stall. He could only resentfully close his stall. Not long after, Xiao Yu left Lindong Square. He casually found a place not far from the entrance of Lindong Square Valley and set up his stall. He had to pay to set up a stall inside, but there was no need to pay outside, right? Outside, there would also be many cultivators passing by. The conditions were not worse than inside. However, what made Xiaolingyu depressed was that in the 3 months he had set up his stall, there were more than 100 cultivators passing by his stall, but not a single one stopped to take a look. Everyone directly walked into the valley and did not linger outside. After thinking for a while, Xiaolingyu clearly marked the prices of all the items he sold to attract customers. Needless to say, this trick was really useful. The cultivators who passed by later would at least take a look. Most of the cultivators would stop to take a look. However, what puzzled Xiaolingyu was that his price was clearly not high, but not a single cultivator came to sell his items. However, the heavens did not disappoint those who worked hard. After waiting for another month, Xiaolingyu finally completed a transaction. Moreover, it was not a small transaction. The cultivator that Xiaolingyu first met when he entered Lindong Square hesitated in front of Xiaolingyu's stall for a long time. After Xiaolingyu agreed to a 10% discount, he bought all the treasures on Xiaolingyu's stall in one go. After paying nearly 10,000 divine communication stones, the cultivator put away all the treasures and directly entered Lindong Square without saying anything else. Xiaolingyu estimated that the guy was most likely preparing to sell all his treasures to other cultivators and earn the difference in price. Xiaolingyu just wanted to get some divine communication stones as soon as possible so that he would have more confidence when he walked on Heavenly Saint Island in the future. Otherwise, he would not have sold so many treasures at such a cheap price. In fact, it had been less than a year since he had sold so many things. Business could be considered very good. In Lindong Square, many cultivators who had set up stalls for hundreds of years could not sell a single item. Xiaolingyu took out some sane items and placed them in front of him. Then, he sat and waited for customers to come. Unfortunately, after waiting for more than half a year, no customers came. Instead, a group of uninvited guests came one night. There were more than 20 cultivators in this group, and all of them were in the Saint God stage. Among them, there were 3 late-stage Saint Gods and 1 peak late-stage Saint God expert. They surrounded Xiaolingyu. This group of cultivators had concealment restrictions on their bodies, so Xiaolingyu could not see their true faces. It was obvious that they did not come with good intentions. "Leave your storage treasures and scram." That peak late-stage Saint God expert shouted at Xiaolingyu, not allowing him to refuse. At this time, Xiaolingyu had already put away his stall. He stood up calmly and asked curiously, "Are you here to rob me?" Noisy. Chapter 704. Xiaolingyu did not move and allowed the other party's large hand to grab his shoulder like an iron pincer. However, just as the other party's hand was about to touch his left shoulder, Xiaolingyu's right hand quickly moved and grabbed the other party's wrist. With a little force, the crisp sound of bones cracking could be heard, followed by the cultivator's pained cry. "You dare to rob with such little ability?" Xiaolingyu said disdainfully. "You're courting death. Brothers, attack together." The cultivator grimaced in pain and shouted loudly. The remaining 20 or so cultivators brandished their weapons and charged at Xiaolingyu. Although Xiaolingyu was strong, he was not an omnipotent expert. He would not be able to handle so many sacred gods at once. If these 20 or so sacred gods all set up their domains and used them to suppress Xiaolingyu would not be able to retaliate at all. Therefore, Xiaolingyu hid in the primal chaos spectrum. The attacks of the 20 or so sacred god robbers naturally all missed. They were all extremely surprised by Xiaolingyu's sudden disappearance and blankly looked around. Just as they were looking around and searching with their divine consciousness, Xiaolingyu suddenly came out of the primal chaos spectrum. Although he had a very good opportunity, he did not ambush any of the robbers. Instead, he flashed out of their encirclement and madly ran. In order to avoid trouble, Xiaolingyu ran towards the entrance of Lindong Square. "Old 8, Old 9, stop him." However, just as he reached the entrance, he saw 2 divine lights flying towards him. At the same time, he also saw the 2 cultivators guarding the entrance of the valley. The 2 divine lights were very powerful, but they could not hurt Xiaolingyu. Xiaolingyu pushed his palms forward and 2 waves of chaotic divine power destroyed the 2 divine lights. Then, Xiaoling Yu leaped up again and dodged the two cultivators, arriving at the entrance of the valley. What Xiaoling Yu did not expect was that before her feet touched the ground, a powerful aura surged out from the valley. In an instant, it pushed her body several hundred feet away. Xiaoling Yu was sure that a divine master expert had released his aura in the valley to repel him. Those who break the rules of Lindong Square are not allowed to enter. A dignified voice came from the valley. After Xiaoling Yu steadied himself, his expression was extremely gloomy. He didn't charge towards Lindong Square. Instead, he took advantage of the fact that the 20 or so bandits had not formed another encirclement to escape into the depths of the dark forest with his back to Lindong Square. If he wanted to break free, Xiaoling Yu would only need to ask Fudi for a ride or use his wings of extreme speed. No Saint God expert would be able to catch up to him. However, Xiaoling Yu was filled with resentment and killing intent. He did not want to run away with his tail between his legs. Therefore, after he entered the forest, he did not increase his speed too quickly. He only maintained a distance of 500 feet from the group of bandits who were chasing after him, purposely luring the group of cultivators into the forest. Although there were many of them, they had chosen the wrong target to rob tonight. After leading the group of cultivators for a full hour, Xiaoling Yu suddenly stopped when they were more than 10,000 miles away from Lindong Square. With a thought, Fudi came out of the spirit beast pouch. After a while, Linger, Qing Xian, and Miaoling also came out of the chaos spectrum with Xiao Bing. They had been cooped up in the chaos spectrum for so long and had long wanted to come out for some fresh air. The sacred artifact, the yin-yang mirror, also floated above Xiaoling Yu's head. The 4 illusory monsters also revealed their illusory figures. 8 rays of black light flew out of Xiaoling Yu's body and transformed into 8 black armored clones. They also had an imposing aura. When the 20 or so cultivators caught up, they realized that something was wrong. Unfortunately, it was already too late. The 4 illusory monsters that were not afraid of any attacks took the lead and charged forward. The other party did not know that they were not afraid of any attacks, so they naturally poured all their attacks on them. However, they endured the attacks head-on and charged into the other party's camp without suffering any injuries. After being attacked by the 4 illusory monsters, the other party's formation was immediately thrown into chaos. The 20 or so bandits never thought that their target would suddenly have so many helpers. The 4 illusory monsters ignored their attacks, which made them extremely shocked. Then, the 8 black armored clones and the 3 women also charged forward with Xiao Bing. Xiaoling Yu stood behind Fudi and also continuously attacked. The battle ended very quickly. Of the 20 or so bandits, only the peak late-stage holy deity expert escaped with serious injuries. The rest were either directly killed or captured alive by Xiaoling Yu. After searching the souls of the captured holy deity bandits, Xiaoling Yu's brows furrowed tightly. It seemed that he had caused quite a bit of trouble this time. These 20 or so bandits belonged to a rather powerful bandit group, and this bandit group had 2 immortal ascension experts overseeing it. These 20 or so bandits were only a squadron. Their leader had some relationship with the owner of Lindong Square. This time, they had been invited by the owner of Lindong Square to come outside and teach Xiaoling Yu a lesson. Xiaoling Yu finally understood why everyone was willing to pay the spiritual divine stone to set up a stall in Lindong Square. It turned out that it was not safe outside. Moreover, the owner of Lindong Square had deliberately colluded with the bandits to rob cultivators who dared to do business outside Lindong Square. This way, he could guarantee the business of Lindong Square. Thinking about it, if everyone did business outside Lindong Square, who would Lindong Square look for to collect fees? It seemed that the experts of Immortal Ascension Island were not only focused on cultivation. Xiaoling Yu sighed, then mercilessly killed all the captured bandits. This time, I've almost wiped out a squadron of bandits. Their leader will definitely come for revenge. It's best if I don't enter Lindong Square again. Thinking of this, Xiaoling Yu continued to move stealthily for a while before entering the Primal Chaos Catalog. The 20 or so holy deity bandits were all quite wealthy. Each of them had at least 1 saint artifact. Just the saint artifacts alone gave Xiaoling Yu more than 30 of them, not to mention the many saint pills, saint-grade materials, and nearly 50,000 spiritual divine stones. Robbery was always one of the best ways to quickly increase one's wealth, but it was also more dangerous. It was worth mentioning that among the 20 or so holy deities' storage treasures, there were more than 10 materials that Xiaolingyu needed to prepare. This also saved Xiaolingyu a lot of trouble and spiritual divine stones. After checking the storage treasures of these bandits, Xiaolingyu came out of the Primal Chaos catalog and then used the Tubular Saint artifact to launch a greater teleportation. With the map Jade Slip provided by Shengongbao for positioning, Xiaolingyu didn't have to worry about being teleported to an unknown and dangerous place. After the teleportation, Xiaolingyu came to the side of a market called Hidden Cloud Lane. This market was built on the top of a mountain hidden in the clouds, hence the name. The top of the mountain had been flattened by cultivators, making it look like a square. However, there were many stone tablets on top of it. The cultivators who did business in Hidden Cloud Lane set up their stalls under the stone tablets. The rest of the empty space was not allowed to set up stalls. There were no stone steps connecting the foot of the mountain to the top of the Hidden Cloud Lane. Xiaolingyu saw that many cultivators directly flew to the top of the mountain. If one set up a stall at the foot of the mountain to do business, it would not be easy to be seen by passing cultivators and it would be difficult to do business. Xiaolingyu directly flew into the air and landed in the market at the top of the mountain. The area of Hidden Cloud Lane was not as large as Lindong Square, but the number of cultivators setting up stalls was denser. It looked like business was much better than Lindong Square. Xiaolingyu first searched for the materials he needed, but he only bought a dozen or so of them. The spirit stones he had obtained before were almost used up. Hidden Cloud Lane was the same as Lindong Square. The things sold here were not priced, and the stall owners were not responsible for introducing the goods. It was all up to the customer to judge. Xiaolingyu didn't like to dawdle, so the price he offered was relatively high in order to directly buy the goods. The spirit stones were almost used up, but Xiaolingyu still had more than a dozen materials to buy, so he could only set up a stall in Hidden Cloud Lane to sell some treasures. Xiaolingyu found a stone tablet and just as he set up his stall, a cultivator came over to collect the fees. He paid 200 spirit stones and obtained the right to set up his stall for 100 years. The first thing he put on display were the things he had obtained before he arrived at Heavenly Saint Island. As long as the customer's price was not too low, he would directly sell them. As a result, the spirit stones he obtained were much fewer. However, Xiaolingyu had a lot of things in his collection. He then took out the treasures he had obtained from killing the 20 or so bandits in batches. Similarly, he did not ask for high prices, nor did he cheat. In addition, the things he sold were very needed by cultivators, so his business was very good, making the nearby stall owners very envious. Other people who had set up stalls for hundreds of years only sold a few treasures, but Xiaolingyu had only set up his stall for 2 years and sold nearly 100 spirit stones, earning him more than 200,000 spirit stones. This was his price, which was generally lower than other stalls. After closing up his stall, Xiaolingyu bought the rest of the materials he needed in Hidden Cloud Lane, then prepared to fly out of Hidden Cloud Lane. But just as he was about to fly away, he suddenly stopped and walked towards a stall. There was already a young cultivator in front of the stall. He said to the stall owner, "Your spirit mushroom is not 1,000,000 years old, and it's not a high-quality item. It's only worth 1,000 spirit stones." The stall owner only smiled and shook his head, as if he was not satisfied with the young cultivator's price. 1,200 spirit stones, that's the highest price I can offer, the young cultivator said. But the stall owner still shook his head silently. Although the young cultivator looked a little annoyed, he did not directly leave. At this time, there was only one spirit mushroom in the stall. It looked pitch black, and if one did not look carefully, they would think it was a piece of black stone. Just as the young cultivator said, this spirit mushroom was not 1,000,000 years old, but it was the demonic blood heavenly spirit mushroom that Xiaolingyu needed. It was an extremely precious spirit material. Chapter 705. The young cultivator was stunned at first, then he glared at Xiaolingyu, looking a little angry. Xiaoling Yu ignored the young cultivator's expression and waited for the stall owner's reaction. But even if Xiaoling Yu quadrupled the young cultivator's price, the stall owner still shook his head. 8,000. Xiaoling Yu raised the price again. Although the demonic blood heavenly Lingji was not the most important material for him to break through to the ninth revolution, it was still an indispensable material. Since he encountered it here, he naturally had to get his hands on it. As for the psychic divine stone, Xiaoling Yu felt that it was the same as the divine stone, so it should not be difficult for him to earn it. Fellow Taoist is a knowledgeable person, so you should know its true price. Fellow Taoist should state the highest price you can afford, the stall owner said when he saw that Xiaoling Yu was sincere in buying it. Xiaoling Yu frowned slightly and said, 12,000. Deal. As soon as Xiaoling Yu made the bid, the stall owner, who had a calm expression just now, immediately revealed a smile. As for the young cultivator beside him, he looked at Xiaoling Yu with a face full of ridicule. It was obvious that he did not think that Xiaoling Yu was being generous, but instead saw Xiaoling Yu as a sucker. Xiaoling Yu knew that he had been fooled, but it did not matter. He did not care too much about the psychic divine stone. After all, it was given by the robbers. After throwing a storage bag to the stall owner, Xiaoling Yu took out a large jade box and put away the demonic blood heavenly Lingji. Without lingering in the hidden cloud workshop, Xiaoling Yu walked to the corner of the market and leaped up. The young cultivator watched Xiaoling Yu fly away, then took out a communication bead, sent a message, and flew after Xiaoling Yu. The young cultivator was very careful. He only followed from afar and did not raise his speed completely. At first, Xiaoling Yu did not notice that someone was following him. However, after flying for the time it took to brew a cup of tea, they were already far away from the hidden cloud workshop. He then discovered the young cultivator. With a cold smile, he descended from the sky and continued to walk forward unhurriedly. After taking a few detours and deliberately increasing his speed, Xiaoling Yu realized that the young cultivator was still following him. This made him certain that he had been targeted. Although Xiaoling Yu wasn't afraid of being targeted and was often targeted, he hated people with bad intentions the most. Thus, he lost his patience and turned around, flying towards the young cultivator. In just a few breaths of time, Xiaoling Yu was only 1,000 feet away from the young cultivator. At this moment, two figures flew over from not far away and landed beside the young cultivator. Xiaoling Yu had long expected that the young cultivator had been following her without making a move because he was most likely waiting for his companions to arrive. Thus, there was no change in her expression. "Big brother, second brother, it's him." The young cultivator pointed at Xiaoling Yu and said. Xiaoling Yu could already tell that the two cultivators who had just arrived were both at the peak of the late Saint God realm. They could barely be considered experts on heaven-reaching Saint Island. After all, heaven-reaching Saint experts generally did not come out easily. However, as long as they had not reached the heaven-reaching Saint realm, they were all weak in front of Xiaoling Yu. "Is there something you need from me?" Xiaoling Yu asked with a smile when he sensed that the two peak late Saint God realm experts had already locked onto him and were trying to pry into his cultivation. The two experts who had just arrived were unable to see through Xiaoling Yu's cultivation, but they could vaguely determine that the person in front of them was definitely not a heaven-reaching Saint expert. "There's nothing else. It's just that the three of us brothers recently have a business deal, but we don't have much money on hand, so you want me to lend you some divine communication stones, right?" Before the other party could finish speaking, Xiaoling Yu had already finished speaking. "That's right. I wonder if you're willing to help us," one of the experts asked. "Haha, to be honest, I do have tens of thousands of divine communication stones on me, but wouldn't it be embarrassing for me to give them to you just because you want them?" Xiaoling Yu teased. "Fellow Taoist, it's best if you know what's good for you. Don't lose your life over mere worldly possessions," one of the experts said coldly. "Leave behind your storage treasure, and the three of us can let you live," the young cultivator said. "Don't you think that since I dare to stand here, I'm actually not afraid of you at all?" Xiaoling Yu asked curiously. The three cultivators opposite him frowned. In fact, the two experts who had arrived later did not directly attack because they could not see through Xiaoling Yu's cultivation level. Therefore, they did not act rashly and only wanted to test the other party's strength through a few words. If the three of you turn back now, I'll pretend that I never saw the three of you today, and we'll mind our own business. How about it? Xiaoling Yu said in a seemingly generous manner. All right. The three cultivators hesitated for a moment, and one of the experts unexpectedly agreed to Xiaoling Yu's request. Xiaoling Yu nodded and smiled, then turned around. However, just as he took 2 steps, he already felt a powerful aura rushing toward him. He did not turn around, but waved his hand and sent the chaos seal that he had prepared behind him. Boom! A loud explosion came from behind him, and Xiaoling Yu's body suddenly flew backward. In a flash, Xiaoling Yu was already in front of the 3 cultivators. 8 rays of black light also flew out from his body, turning into 8 black armor avatars that surrounded the 3 cultivators. Sensing the powerful aura of the black armor avatars, the 3 cultivators finally understood that they had kicked an iron plate. I gave you a chance just now, but you're courting death. Don't blame me for being merciless. Xiaoling Yu's face darkened, and his killing intent surged. Xiaoling Yu did not know why, but although his cultivation level had been increasing in recent years, his killing intent had become stronger and stronger. Wait! As soon as one of the cultivators spoke, Xiaoling Yu's palm struck the young cultivator who was firmly suppressed by the black armor avatar's multiple domains. Do you have something to say? Xiaoling Yu sneered. We were blind to have offended you, senior. Please spare our lives. We're willing to do anything for you, senior, one of the cultivators said with fear and sincerity. The current situation was very clear. Even if they were peak late-stage saint gods, it was impossible for them to defeat so many saint gods, not to mention that they were currently suppressed by the black armor avatar's multiple domains. They could barely display 10 or 20% of their battle prowess. I don't think there's any reason for me to let you go, Xiaoling Yu said coldly. If you're willing to let us go, senior, we're willing to tell you about our recent fortuitous encounters, one of the cultivators said. Your fortuitous encounters are not necessarily fortuitous encounters for me. Besides, if I capture you and search your souls, I'll know everything. Why would I need you to tell me anything? Xiaoling Yu shook his head and smiled. This fortuitous encounter is not to be underestimated even for Divine Master experts. If you kill us, senior, you'll miss out on this opportunity for nothing, one of the cultivators said nervously. Release your cultivation and mental defenses, Xiaoling Yu said firmly. The 2 cultivators looked at each other and did as they were told. Xiaoling Yu first sealed the 2 cultivators' cultivation, then planted a restriction in their souls, making them completely unable to resist. These 2 cultivators were actually not inferior to Xiaoling Yu in terms of cultivation level, but Xiaoling Yu had the inheritance of the ancient Divine Master, Jiao Zhou, so it was easy for him to plant a restriction in their souls. After the soul search was over, Xiaoling Yu nodded with satisfaction. These 2 cultivators had really obtained a fortuitous encounter, but it was not easy to obtain. In order to avoid being hunted by ferocious beasts, they hid in a very secluded cave in a large mountain. In that cave, they accidentally found a stone door. At that time, they used all kinds of methods but could not open the stone door. They also used earth escape from other directions in the cave, but they could not reach the stone door no matter what. They carefully studied it for many years, read countless ancient books, and consulted several Divine Master experts based on the characteristics of the stone door. In the end, they found a way to open the stone door and confirmed that behind the stone door was a cave left behind by an ancient Divine Master. In order to open the stone door, they needed to purchase many kinds of special materials, which required a large number of divine psychic stones. In order to obtain enough divine psychic stones, they were anxious for the treasures in the ancient Divine Master's cave, which was why they had been robbing other cultivators recently. They were more cautious when robbing, and they specifically targeted lone cultivators who were below the Divine Master level. The young cultivator who was killed by Xiaoling Yu was responsible for finding the target of the robbery among the 3 of them. He had always been searching in the hidden cloud workshop. Today, Shaolin Yu generously took out more than 10,000 divine psychic stones to buy the demonic blood heavenly Lingji, causing the young cultivator to have evil intentions, which led to the following events. Shaolin Yu hesitated for a moment and did not kill the two cultivators because they had already done something to the stone door of the cave. The two rings on the stone door were the key to opening the stone door. The two of them had already placed a drop of their blood soul into it. If the two of them died, then the two rings on the stone door would shatter. Of course, this was the result of their research. As for whether it would really be like this, no one could say for sure. Shaolin Yu still needed to purchase a lot of materials, and the remaining materials were all high-grade goods, all of which were expensive. He also needed to accumulate a lot of divine psychic stones. If he relied on selling the treasures, not only would it take a long time, but it would also not be sustainable for a long time. After all, his collection was non-infinite. Therefore, Shaolin Yu naturally would not give up the cave left behind by the ancient divine master so easily. I need nearly 3 million divine psychic stones to buy all the materials. This number seems a little high. Shaolin Yu rubbed his chin and fell into deep thought. With the restriction of the soul restriction, Shaolin Yu did not need to imprison the power of the two experts. After returning their freedom, Shaolin Yu said, "Your method of accumulating divine psychic stones is not only dangerous, but it also takes too long. Can you think of a new way?" Chapter 706. Shaolin Yu had just arrived at Heavenspan's Sacred Island not long ago and had yet to gain a firm foothold. He didn't even have a clear understanding of the island's situation, so he naturally didn't have any good ideas. Shaolin Yu had to ensure the safety of these two peak late-stage holy god cultivators in order to successfully enter the ancient cave abode. If anything happened to them, Shaolin Yu might not be able to enter the cave abode. Shaolin Yu had no choice but to let the two cultivators follow him while he slowly thought of a solution. Actually, with Senior's strength, it's very easy for you to gather 3 million spirit stones. After walking for a while, one of the cultivators said to Shaolin Yu. "Oh? Let's hear it," Shaolin Yu said indifferently. "Senior, if you don't want to rob, you can go to the arena," the cultivator said. "That's right. With Senior's strength, as long as you win a few rounds at Luo Shaolin, you'll easily get 3 million spirit stones," the other cultivator agreed. "Tell me the details," Shaolin Yu frowned slightly. "In Luo Shaolin, there's an arena hidden underground. All cultivators can sign up to fight there. As long as you win, you'll be rewarded handsomely with spirit stones. Moreover, the more consecutive victories, the greater the reward," the cultivator who had suggested earlier said. "I heard that a powerful figure appeared in Luo Shaolin some time ago. He's already undefeated in 100 battles at the Holy God stage and obtained nearly 10 million spirit stones," the other cultivator nodded and said. "Is it true that when cultivators at different cultivation levels fight in the arena, cultivators at different cultivation levels cannot fight those at a lower cultivation level?" Shaolin Yu asked. "That's for sure. Otherwise, which holy god cultivator can defeat an Empyrean expert? However, fighting above one's cultivation level is allowed. Moreover, if you win, the reward is 1,000 times greater than winning a battle of the same cultivation level. However, I've never heard of a god emperor defeating a holy god, much less a holy god defeating an Empyrean expert. Even that undefeated holy god cultivator didn't have the guts to challenge an Empyrean expert," the cultivator explained in detail. Shaolin Yu thought for a moment and asked, "Then the battle should be one's own life and death, and there should be a powerful force controlling it, right?" "Of course." The two cultivators answered at the same time. "How's their reputation?" Shaolin Yu asked again. "There's no problem with their reputation. That arena has existed for many years. There's no negative news about it," one of the cultivators replied. "Let's go take a look at Luo Shaolin first." Then, Shaolin Yu took out his tubular saint artifact and teleported toward Luo Shaolin. On the jade slip map given by Shingongbao, the specific location of Luo Chao Workshop was marked, so the location of Luo Chao Workshop was not a problem. these two cultivators were called Zhang Fang and Itai. Together with the young cultivator from before, they were sworn brothers. However, although they were sworn brothers, they did not have a deep relationship with each other. They had only formed a temporary alliance for the sake of entering the ancient immortal cave. Although Zhang Fang and Itai were not human cultivators, their race was similar to the human race in appearance. Coupled with the slight adjustment of their appearance, they looked exactly the same as human cultivators. They were both independent cultivators. Like Xiaolingyu, they came from outside Heavenly Saint Island. However, they came to Heavenly Saint Island much earlier than Xiaolingyu. After they arrived at the Skirich Saint Island, they had all acted alone, and did not have too much interaction with other cultivators. For the sake of seeking the opportunity to advance to the Skirich stage, they had always been traveling all over the place. Although they had experienced many difficulties, their luck had always been pretty good, and now they were only a step away from the Skirich stage. It was precisely because they liked to travel that they were extremely familiar with this region of Heavenly Saint Island. It was also because of this that they had discovered the stone door when they were avoiding danger. Luo Xiaolane was at the foot of a mountain. It wasn't very big, only about 10 miles long and wide. It was surrounded by a fence more than 30 meters high. At the entrance of Luo Xiaolane, there were 2 stone statues that looked like evil spirits. It was said that the evil spirits were Luo Xia cultivators. However, this race was very rare. It was even said that the Luo Xia race had gone extinct. Luo Xiaolane looked more like a small town. There were many houses and shops, but the buildings were not tall. They were either stone houses or wooden buildings. It was very simple. After entering Luo Xiaolane, Xiaolingyu followed Zhang Fang and Itai to the depths of the market. Zhang Fang and Itai stopped in front of a row of stone buildings when they reached a place near the mountain. The stone building only had 2 floors and was less than 30 meters high. Although there were many cultivators going in and out, it was very quiet. Inside the stone building, there were rows of counters. Many cultivators stood behind the counters, placing their treasures on the counters and waiting for customers. The stone building looked like a free shop, but in fact, there was an underground arena in the depths of the shop. To enter the underground arena, one had to go to a counter in the corner of the stone building and buy a jade slip. The jade slip was not cheap. It cost 100 spiritual divine stones. However, the jade slip was capable of releasing faint, undetectable waves of energy fluctuations to envelop the cultivator's entire body, preventing other cultivators from seeing the cultivator's appearance and cultivation base. However, if one wanted to enter the arena, they had to take the jade slip and test their cultivation in front of the guardian of the underground arena. After paying 300 divine psychic stones, Xiaolingyu and the other 2 each received a jade slip and entered a secret room. In this secret chamber, there was a pitch-black stone staircase that extended underground. At this moment, there were shouts coming from below the pitch-black stone staircase. Perhaps because the staircase was too deep, the shouts were not very obvious. Xiaolingyu walked down the stone steps until he was tens of thousands of feet underground. Only then did he reach the end of the stone steps. There, he saw an open door. There were 2 Saint God cultivators guarding the door. They should have seen Xiaolingyu and the other 2's jade slips, so they did not stop them. Behind the door was a large underground arena. There were many spectator stands around and there were many seats. At the center of the arena was a stage that was about 2,000 meters in length. At this moment, the entire arena was packed. Countless cultivators were staring at the stage. Many of the more excited cultivators were clapping and cheering. On the stage, there were 2 cultivators fighting. The 2 cultivators in the arena were also not human cultivators. They were both in the Saint God stage. One of them was tall, muscular, and looked powerful. The other was short, with a pair of shriveled arms like an eagle's claws and toes like a duck's feet. One of them was strong. His attacks were overbearing and fierce, and his defense was equally strong. The other was very agile. He moved like lightning. He used his smaller body and faster speed to circle around his opponent, waiting for an opportunity to attack with his claws. the tall cultivator had a slight disadvantage in terms of speed. In this small arena, he was naturally frequently scratched by the opponent's sharp claws. However, every time he was hit, a faint layer of earthy yellow light would appear on his body, forcibly blocking the opponent's attack without breaking. The tall cultivator held a sledgehammer in his hand and constantly swung it around. However, his opponent's speed was too fast. He was unable to hit his opponent. No wonder it's so lively. It turns out that Meng Zhong is fighting. He is an expert who has been famous in the underground arena for a long time. He once had a record of 30 consecutive matches without losing. His opponent is in trouble this time. That's not necessarily true. I think that the short man still has the advantage. Since he dares to challenge Meng Zhong, how could he not have some ability? Zhang Fang and Yitai looked at each other and began to discuss. If nothing unexpected happens, the big man will win. Xiaoling Yu also expressed his opinion. The big man can only defend now. His attacks can't hit at all. How can he win? Yitai asked, puzzled. The short man seems to have the upper hand, but this small arena also restricts his performance. Moreover, he has been moving at such a high speed, so he must consume a lot of energy. Most importantly, he can't be careless. The big man seems to be at a disadvantage now, but he has a lot of fighting experience. Don't be fooled by the fact that he keeps swinging the sledgehammer in his hand. In fact, he consumes very little energy. The layer of light that appears when his opponent hits him should be a kind of special ability. It can last for a long time. He only needs to seize the opportunity to win the fight. Xiaoling Yu explained with a smile. As expected, the fight went on for almost an hour. Finally, the short man was careless because he had been moving at such a high speed for a long time. The big man, Meng Zhong, had been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. Naturally, he would not let it go so easily. With a swing of his sledgehammer, he smashed the short man into the arena. However, Xiaoling Yu did not expect that either the short man's defense was too weak, or Meng Zhong's sledgehammer attack was too strong. The short man was smashed into a meat patty with a single swing of the sledgehammer. He never moved again. Enthusiastic cheers sounded from below the arena. Meng Zhong walked down the arena with a calm face. He did not look proud at all because of his victory. After Meng Zhong left the arena, a few cultivators went up to the arena and cleaned up the short man's mangled body. Then, an old man in a black robe came up to the arena and said to the audience, "Everyone, today's highlight has arrived. Chen Xiao, who has won 135 matches in a row, will now accept the challenge. Let's wait and see whether Chen Xiao will extend his winning record to 136 matches, or whether he will end it. Next, let's welcome Chen Xiao to the arena." Amidst the enthusiastic cheers of all the cultivators present, a young cultivator with long black hair and wearing a long green robe slowly walked up to the arena. This cultivator looked like a human. He was handsome, but his face was cold. He did have the temperament of a powerful cultivator. Chapter 707. Next, let's welcome today's challenger, Yu Luo from the Golden Feather clan. At the black-robed old man's announcement, a cultivator who also looked quite young walked onto the stage with light steps. Although he was not human, Yu Luo from the Golden Feather clan looked like a human cultivator. Yu Luo is also at the peak of the late-stage Holy God realm and comes from the powerful Golden Feather clan. Therefore, we have reason to believe that his battle with Chen Xiao will be a close match. There is a betting pool over there and we welcome everyone to place their bets. The old man pointed to a corner of the spectator's stand and said, "If you place your bets on Yu Luo, you will receive 5 times the compensation and lose everything if he wins. If you place your bets on Chen Xiao, you will receive 90% of the compensation and lose everything if he wins. If they are tied, those who bet on Yu Luo will receive double the compensation and those who bet on Chen Xiao will lose everything." The cultivators on the spectator's stand had already begun to move toward the betting pool. Chen Xiao and Yu Luo's battle did not begin immediately. Both of them waited patiently on the stage. A full 2 hours passed. After everyone had placed their bets, the old man said, "Sorry for the long wait. The bets have been closed. Let the battle begin." As soon as the old man finished speaking, the cultivator called Chen Xiao took the initiative to attack. Chen Xiao's body swayed and he appeared beside Yuluo as if he had teleported. He slashed his palm horizontally at Yuluo's neck. Yuluo seemed to be very uncomfortable with Chen Xiao's way of attacking without warning. In a hurry, he could only tilt his head and dodge the attack. However, Chen Xiao turned his palm into a claw and grabbed at Yuluo's shoulder. Yuluo also got into position. He leaned back and dodged his opponent's attack again. Then, he kicked his feet forward and quickly retreated 30 feet away. Chen Xiao's attacks were very continuous. He had also advanced 30 feet and punched at his opponent's chest with both fists. Yuluo had already taken out a dark golden dagger and slashed it at Chen Xiao's fists. Chen Xiao's attack was extremely fast. Logically speaking, his fists should have been sliced by the sharp dagger, but he quickly turned his fists into palms and, with one above and one below, caught Yuluo's dagger between his palms. Yuluo slashed her knife horizontally with great force. Chen Xiao was able to catch Yuluo's sharp knife. Not only did it prove that he was fast and steady, it also showed his courage and confidence. Then, Chen Xiao quickly flipped his palm and kicked Yuluo's calf. Yuluo raised his leg to block. When his legs collided, he felt a burst of pain. Chen Xiao's kick was powerful. While Yuluo's calf was in pain and her lower body was unstable, Chen Xiao had already seized the opportunity to snatch Yuluo's dagger away. The confrontation between the two sides was completed in the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint. Ordinary cultivators could not even see the entire process of the battle clearly. Chen Xiao's attacks were very coherent and methodical. It was impossible to guard against them when they were executed in one go. Yuluo's defense was rather decent, but with just that bit of ability, she would definitely not be able to beat Chen Xiao. Since Yuluo dared to challenge Chen Xiao, he naturally had some skills. When his dagger was snatched away, a pair of golden wings immediately appeared on his back. With a flash of golden light, Yuluo dodged Chen Xiao's follow-up attack and appeared behind him. Without using any Dharma treasures, Yuluo's hands turned into a pair of golden claws. He rushed forward and clawed at Chen Xiao's back. Yuluo's attack was not slow either. Chen Xiao could not dodge his attack. However, just as Yuluo's claws were about to hit Chen Xiao suddenly stomped on the stage with one foot. A circle of invisible waves suddenly surged out. Not only did it block Yuluo's attack, but it also bounced Yuluo's body far away. Chen Xiao quickly turned around but did not take advantage of the situation. Instead, he hooked his finger at Yuluo, indicating for him to attack. Yuluo did not hesitate. He flapped his wings and appeared on Chen Xiao's left side in an instant. Then, he clawed at Chen Xiao's head. Yuluo's attack was still extremely fast. Even Chen Xiao could not dodge it. However, Chen Xiao did not seem to have any intention of dodging. A transparent wave surged out from his body again. However, this transparent wave did not shake Yuluo away. Instead, it tied Yuluo's claws together like a rope. Yuluo retreated in shock. However, he was shocked to find that no matter how hard he struggled, he could not shake off the transparent rope. While Yuluo was still in shock, Chen Xiao's palm had already landed on his chest. Chen Xiao's strength was extremely strong. When his palm landed, Yuluo spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. Chen Xiao chased after him, but Yuluo's wings flapped a few times. Not only did they shift his position constantly, but they also created a golden whirlwind. The golden whirlwinds appeared in all directions, but they quickly surrounded Chen Xiao with him at the center. The golden whirlwind sealed off all of Chen Xiao's escape routes. Chen Xiao had no choice but to take it head-on. His entire body was then enveloped by a transparent wave. When the golden whirlwind approached, the transparent wave suddenly exploded, blasting all of the whirlwind into golden light. At that moment, Yuluo's entire body glowed with golden light. It was unknown what kind of magic he had used, but he actually managed to break the transparent rope. However, what Yu Luo did not expect was for Chen Zhao's body to surge with a transparent wave. In an instant, it had covered the entire arena. The transparent wave was able to borrow the power of heaven and earth to completely seal off the small space in the arena. Yu Luo tried his best to resist. The golden light on his body was extremely dazzling. However, he could no longer use his speed. His movement speed was slower than an ordinary person's. Chen Zhao was completely unaffected by the transparent wave. In a flash, he appeared beside Yu Luo and slapped his palm hard on Yu Luo's shoulder. Yu Luo spat out another mouthful of blood. Just as his body was about to fall off the arena, he barely managed to stop himself. After stabilizing himself, Yu Luo's pair of golden wings suddenly exploded, turning into golden feathers. The countless golden feathers were like sharp swords. They weaved through the transparent wave that enveloped the arena. Not only were they destroying the power of the transparent wave, but they were also attacking Chen Zhao from all sides. Chen Zhao was not afraid. His body moved continuously. At the same time, he continuously attacked the golden feathers that were close to him. Every time he attacked, a few feathers would be destroyed. While resisting the attacks of the golden feathers, Chen Zhao's body continued to release transparent waves, causing the transparent wave in the arena to become stronger and stronger. When all of the golden feathers were destroyed, Chen Zhao's clothes were tattered. His body was also scratched by the golden feathers. Although it looked like he was at a disadvantage, in reality, they were only superficial wounds. It did not affect his overall combat ability much. The golden light on Yu Luo's body became more and more dazzling. Unfortunately, the transparent wave continued to shrink, squeezing him from all directions. Yu Luo probably wanted to unleash another big move. However, under the suppression of the transparent wave, the golden light on his body became dimmer and dimmer until it was completely extinguished. At that moment, Yu Luo was tightly sealed by the solid and strange transparent wave. He could not move at all. He could not even use his remarkable abilities. Yu Luo was clearly defeated. However, before he could even open his mouth to admit defeat, Chen Zhao was already in front of him. Chen Zhao stabbed his palm toward Yu Luo's lower abdomen. Chen Zhao's palm was extremely sharp. It instantly pierced Yu Luo's abdomen. When Chen Zhao pulled his hand back, there was a small golden bird in his palm. The small golden bird should be Yu Luo's divine infant. After it was captured, Chen Zhao used a transparent wave to seal it. Then, he put it away in his storage treasure as if there was no one around. Without the divine infant, Yu Luo completely lost the ability to fight back. Under the pressure of the transparent wave, his body was crushed into a ball of flesh that released a weak golden light. When Chen Zhao retracted the transparent waves, the mass of flesh and blood turned into a golden light that filled the sky, spreading throughout the entire underground arena. A peak late Saint God expert of the Golden Feather clan who possessed great talent and a very promising future had died just like that. However, among the cultivators in the stands, those who bet on Yu Luo began to curse loudly, while those who bet on Chen Zhao naturally cheered loudly. None of them were surprised by Yu Luo's death, and none of them questioned or criticized Chen Zhao's ruthlessness. None of Chen Zhao's opponents have been able to walk out of the arena alive. Not only is he powerful, but he's also far too vicious, Zhang Fang said without changing his expression. The transparent wave he released is a very powerful and strange ability. If we can't get through it, we won't be able to defeat him, Xiaoling Yu said with narrowed eyes. Yu Luo's not bad. There aren't many cultivators who can make Chen Zhao use the transparent wave, He Tai said indifferently. Both Zhang Fang and He Tai seemed to be certain that they would be able to defeat Chen Zhao. It's a pity that you're an immortal ascension expert. Otherwise, you could have fought Yu Luo, Zhang Fang said regretfully. To Zhang Fang and He Tai, Xiaoling, you must be an immortal ascension expert to be able to subdue them so easily. Although I haven't reached the immortal ascension stage, I won't easily fight someone as powerful as Chen Zhao to the death. Xiaoling Yu shook his head with a smile. You haven't reached the immortal ascension stage? Zhang Fang and He Tai were very surprised. They were also a little suspicious. Xiao Yu naturally wouldn't explain anything. He said, "Take me to sign up for the arena fight." It was very simple to sign up for the arena fight. As long as you paid a fee of no less than 1,000 spiritual immortal stones, you could go to the spectator stands and wait. Before long, the cultivator in charge of the underground arena would arrange an opponent for you. When they tested your cultivation, they only checked the cultivator's soul cultivation. The result of the test was naturally that Xiao Yu was a saint god. This result cleared Zhang Fang and Yitai of their doubts. They could only sigh at Xiao Yu's strength and uniqueness. Chapter 708. Defeating an opponent in one move was not a true demonstration of a cultivator's actual strength, so it did not attract the attention of other cultivators. A cultivator in the advanced stage of Holy God could defeat a cultivator in the intermediate stage of Holy God in one move. However, in the following 20 matches, Xiao Yu not only won all his matches, but he also came out unscathed. None of his opponents could withstand more than 3 moves from him. However, the strongest of his 20 opponents had not even reached the advanced stage of Holy God, so this level of competition was not too difficult. Therefore, he did not receive much reward, only less than 200,000 divine psychic stones. Fortunately, Xiao Yu had already won 20 matches in a row. In the future matches, as long as he could maintain a winning streak, his reward would be doubled for every additional match he won. Xiao Yu's sudden appearance and his impressive results attracted the attention of many cultivators who liked to gamble. They quietly placed their bets on him and gradually became Xiao Yu's staunch supporters. The first 20 matches did not take much time, but it took almost a year to wait for him to appear. According to past practice, after winning 20 matches in a row, you will encounter a stronger opponent. "Senior Xiao, you must be careful," Zhang Fang reminded him. "Many cultivators are trying to stop their winning streaks at 20 matches. I think the people in charge of the underground arena are doing this on purpose. They purposely arranged for a stronger cultivator to stop everyone from winning 21 matches in a row." Yitai nodded in agreement. "Ha, as long as you are strong enough, it doesn't matter what they do. Didn't Chen Xiao win 136 matches in a row?" Xiao Yu smiled confidently. Just as Zhang Fang and Yitai had said, Xiao Yu's opponent in his 21st match was a cultivator in the advanced stage of Holy God. Moreover, this opponent had won 59 matches in a row. This match was very important to both Xiao Yu and his opponent. If Xiao Yu won, he would receive double the reward. If his opponent won, he would win 60 matches in a row, and the reward would be quintupled. However, to become Xiao Yu's opponent, no matter how brilliant he was in the past, he was destined to dim. Xiao Yu's opponent was rather tactful. When he realized that he couldn't outrun Xiao Yu and that Xiao Yu had used her bare hands to block his attack, he decisively chose to admit defeat. Although it was disgraceful to admit defeat, and the next time they went on stage, it would be considered as their first match. The rewards would be much lower, but at least they were safe. There were many cultivators who braced themselves and fought until the end, but they were beaten to death in the arena by their opponents. Normally, if a cultivator didn't feel the huge gap between them, they would never admit defeat. The 21st battle, which was supposed to be extremely dangerous and difficult, ended in less than 20 breaths of time. The next 19 matches went smoothly as well. Xiao Yu won 40 matches in a row as expected. The 40 matches took 2.5 years. Xiao Yu signed up almost immediately after each match. If it wasn't for the fact that there was only one arena and that the owner of the underground arena had to arrange opponents in time, Xiao Yu would probably only need 2 hours to finish the first 40 matches. The 41st battle was the same as the 21st battle. It was a hurdle for him to continue winning. If he could overcome this hurdle, he would receive triple the reward. Until now, Xiao Yu had accumulated more than 600,000 ethereal spirit stones. Zhang Fang and Yitai had calculated that as long as Xiao Yu won 65 battles in a row, he would be able to accumulate 3 million ethereal spirit stones. Because of Xiao Yu's strength, most of the cultivators who liked to watch the matches and bet really took notice of him. Many cultivators continuously bet on his victory. This caused the bookmakers to lose a lot of divine spirit stones. However, as everyone became more and more confident in Xiaoling Yu, the bets naturally increased, and so did the number of cultivators who bet on him. As long as Xiaoling Yu lost a match, the bookmakers would be able to recoup their losses and make a lot of money. As a result, the bookmakers were unwilling to see Xiaoling Yu continue to win. In fact, the bets were set up by the underground arena's owners. They would arrange powerful opponents for Xiaoling Yu to prevent him from continuing to win. Of course, the bookmakers would sometimes set up a big picture and let Xiaoling Yu continue to advance triumphantly. This would continue to increase the gambler's confidence in him. They would even advertise him as an invincible existence to attract more cultivators to bet on him. Then, when the time was right, they would arrange for an extremely powerful opponent to defeat Xiaoling Yu. In this way, the bookmakers would recoup all their losses and make a huge profit. The 41st opponent was also a late Saint God cultivator. However, he was a sword cultivator who specialized in offense. Under normal circumstances, late Saint God sword cultivators were comparable to peak late Saint God experts even if they couldn't defeat heaven-piercing experts. In the previous matches, Xiaoling Yu had displayed a powerful defense. Moreover, he had mostly used his physical strength to defeat his opponent. In the cultivation world, this kind of opponent was most afraid of sword cultivators. This was because sword cultivators' attacks were too powerful. Seemingly powerful defenses would often be easily torn apart by the sword cultivator's sword or sword techniques. This sword cultivator wielded a decent quality saint sword. As soon as he came up, his sword shone with cold light. Moreover, his sword force domain enveloped the entire area. Xiaoling Yu did not act too carelessly. He immediately unleashed his chaotic domain and released his chaotic true fire for the first time. The chaotic domain suppressed his opponent's chaotic domain, and the chaotic true fire that filled the chaotic domain prevented his opponent from attacking with his full strength. He had to focus on defense at all times. Under such circumstances, even though his opponent was a sword cultivator, he did not cultivate the powerful heaven sword art like old monster Dugu. He only lasted for less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea before admitting defeat without Xiaoling Yu using any other methods. 41 consecutive victories. Because it was relatively easy to win, and because the 41 opponents were much weaker than Xiaoling Yu, it was not too difficult to fight. Therefore, even if his opponents did not admit defeat, Xiaoling Yu only knocked them off the arena. At most, he injured them, but he did not kill any of them. Recently, Xiaoling Yu felt that his murderous intent was much stronger than before. He knew that something was wrong, so he deliberately suppressed it. In this underground arena, there were many cultivators who could achieve 20 consecutive victories. However, there were not many who could achieve 41 consecutive victories. Xiaoling Yu had achieved 41 consecutive victories without revealing much of his skills. This made the banker, who was also the owner of the underground arena, have reason to believe that Xiaoling Yu could continue to advance triumphantly. If they did it well, they could make a lot of money. Therefore, the underground arena began to promote Xiaoling Yu and promote him. They even saw him as a top cultivator in the Holy God stage who could defeat Chen Xiao. Xiaoling Yu also noticed that the number of cultivators watching his battles had increased recently. He did not have any other thoughts about it. He would leave once he finished his 65th battle. Although fighting was also a kind of training for him, allowing him to strengthen his battle awareness and skills, but if his opponent was too weak, it wouldn't have the slightest effect on him. If his opponent was too strong, it would be unavoidable to fight to the death, but this kind of fight to the death was meaningless to him. After that, everything went smoothly. With the intentional cooperation of the underground arena's owner, Xiaoling Yu achieved 60 consecutive victories. His opponent for the 61st battle was one of the protagonists of the first battle he saw on the first day he entered the underground arena. Meng Zhong, a cultivator at the peak of the late stage of the Holy God stage. His best record was 30 consecutive victories. He was a powerful character with great strength and defense. Meng Zhong's strength was very strong. If the banker had not wanted to earn a large amount of psychic immortal stones, his winning streak would have been more than 30. Meng Zhong had always been brooding over this and always wanted to break his own record. However, everyone knew that he was very strong and very few cultivators were willing to challenge him. There was a rule in the underground arena: under the condition of being undefeated, the cultivators couldn't refuse the challenges of their peers. All the opponents were arranged by the holder of the underground arena. As long as they registered, they would definitely be arranged as opponents. As for the cultivators who had been defeated, although they could continue to register, they wouldn't necessarily be arranged. In most cases, they could only rely on accepting the challenges of other cultivators or challenging others to obtain the opportunity to fight. If they challenged a cultivator who had been defeated, the other party could refuse to accept the challenge. Therefore, in order to compete and obtain more psychic immortal stones, cultivators who had been defeated would often challenge cultivators who had not been defeated. This was because the other party could not refuse. As long as the underground arena's owner agreed, the battle would proceed. Meng Zhong registered to challenge Xiaoling Yu because of this. The underground arena's owner specially arranged for him to be in Xiaoling Yu's 61st battle. Meng Zhong was strong in strength and defense. Cultivators who did not understand Xiaoling Yu thought that he was the same type as Xiaoling Yu. Xiaoling Yu did not display his speed in the previous battles. Therefore, no one knew how fast he was. However, in this battle with Meng Zhong, everyone witnessed Xiaoling Yu's speed and endurance. Meng Zhong's strength was very strong. Xiaoling Yu did not gain the slightest bit of advantage even after taking a palm strike from him. Xiaoling Yu then used the chaotic domain and the chaotic flame. However, he was still unable to break through the earthy yellow layer of light that emerged from Meng Zhong's body. Furthermore, Meng Zhong had cultivated the gravity domain, which restricted Xiaoling Yu quite a bit. After exchanging a few blows, Xiaoling Yu, who was also very experienced, began to suppress Meng Zhong with his speed. Meng Zhong's attacks were unable to hit him, and his attacks were always able to hit Meng Zhong's body. Although Meng Zhong's layer of light defense was strong, it could not withstand Xiaoling Yu's continuous attacks. He had been trying to find Xiaoling Yu's weakness and also wanted to wait for Xiaoling Yu to exhaust his power. However, Meng Zhong had underestimated Xiaoling Yu. The two of them continued to fight for 4 hours. Meng Zhong was the first to give up and was sent off the stage by Xiaoling Yu. 61 consecutive victories, which took a total of 4 years, had already set a new record. He was even stronger than Chen Zhao. More importantly, no one knew that Xiaoling Yu's strength was only the tip of the iceberg. Recently, many readers had complained that the updates were too slow. Xiao Fei was helpless about this. Although 6,000 words a day was not fast, it was at least passable. Furthermore, Xiao Fei would explode in the middle and end of the week. Some readers also said that Xiao Fei's updates were late. However, other than the occasional third chapter, Xiao Fei's normal updates were before 22 p.m. This was not considered late for those who like to read online novels, right? After all, many novels were updated in the wee hours of the morning. There were also people who said that the 9-revolution chaos formula was written randomly and that there should not be characters on the investiture of the gods. What Xiao Fei wanted to say was, Xiaoling Yu came from Earth, and Earth also existed in the cultivation world. Under such a setting, wouldn't it be natural for strong people from Earth and characters from Huaxia mythology to appear? Furthermore, in order to pave the way for the ancient strong people from Earth to appear, Xiao Fei had put a lot of ink into the chapters of the cultivation world and the immortal, devil, and demon realms. How could it be written randomly? If Xiao Fei often mentioned the ancient strong people from Earth at the beginning but did not write anything at the end, wouldn't the reader's resentment be even deeper? Chapter 709. It was only after his 61 consecutive victories that many cultivators began to view Xiaoling Yu as a powerful cultivator who could match up to Chen Zhao. The owner of the underground fighting ring continued to advertise for Xiaoling Yu, building momentum for him, and actively arranging the next match for him. The practitioners who often came to the underground fighting ring of the Luo Shao workshop had already realized that another freak who could be said to be invincible under the heaven-reaching realm had appeared. Most of the cultivators who frequented the arena were there for the excitement. However, there were also many who came to witness the skills of the powerful cultivators and hoped to gain something from it. Therefore, the more powerful the cultivator, the more attention they would attract. Xiaoling Yu also won the next 4 matches. However, after his winning streak had increased to 65 matches, he did not sign up for the next one. Xiaoling Yu had already accumulated more than 3,300,000 divine psychic stones. It was enough to gather all the materials needed to open the cave abode. Naturally, he would not continue to fight. After all, he did not come here for fame and fortune, nor did he want to earn more divine psychic stones. However, the owner of the underground arena was unwilling. Xiaoling Yu had won 65 consecutive matches. Winning more than 3 million divine psychic stones was not a big deal. However, countless cultivators had continuously placed large bets on him, causing the underground arena to lose a lot of money. If he did not continue to fight, this loss would be equivalent to going down the drain. Moreover, Xiaoling Yu's withdrawal from the competition when he was at the peak of his popularity could cause a loss of many spectators. At the very least, it would cause many spectators to lose their enthusiasm. As early as when Xiaoling Yu had won 41 consecutive matches, he had already been targeted by the owner of the underground arena. His every move seemed to be under the control of the other party. In the past, he would immediately sign up for the next match after receiving his reward after winning a match. However, this time, he walked directly to the exit. Therefore, the 2 cultivators guarding the entrance stopped him. If Xiaoling Yu tried to force his way out of the underground arena, even if he could get to the surface, he would definitely be stopped. One had to know that the person in charge of the underground arena was a genuine divine master. Otherwise, how could he invite a divine master to fight in the arena? It was very dangerous to charge head-on, so Xiaoling Yu didn't act recklessly and stopped. 20 breaths later, a fat cultivator with a slightly bloated figure arrived at the entrance. "Xiao Daoyu, are you willing to accompany me for a few drinks?" The fat cultivator asked with a smile. Xiaoling Yu naturally knew that Fatty Tian had something to say, so he nodded and followed Fatty Tian to an underground secret room. As for Zhang Fang and Itai, they naturally did not have the qualifications to follow. They were left in the spectators' stands to watch the battle below for free. Fatty Tian was also a holy god, so Xiaoling Yu wasn't afraid of him. The reason why the owner of the underground arena sent Fatty Tian was probably because he didn't want Xiaoling Yu to feel threatened. There were no other arrangements in the secret room except for some soundproof restrictions. There were also no other experts. Xiaoling Yu also thought that there might be danger, but he was still very confident because he could hide in the chaotic spectrum at any time. Fatty Tian first set up a banquet, then poured a cup of wine for Xiaoling Yu. Then he said, "Xiao Daoyu is a straightforward person, so I won't beat around the bush. This time, I invited Xiao Daoyu to have a chat with me because I want Xiao Daoyu to stay and fight a few more matches. What do you think, Xiao Daoyu?" Xiaoling Yu was very straightforward. He said, "It doesn't matter if we fight a few more matches, but there are 3 conditions." Fatty Tian's expression didn't change. He said, "Xiao Daoyu, tell us first. As long as it's not too much, we can agree to it. First, I can fight at most 10 more matches, and only 1 match can be arranged to be difficult. Second, the reward will be increased by 20 times. Third, no matter how I win or lose these 10 matches, you have to let me go. Before I fight, you have to let everyone know that I will only fight 10 matches." Xiaoling Yu said calmly. Xiaoling Yu knew that he would be forced to stay, so he had already thought of these 3 conditions. After hearing this, Fatty Tian pondered for a moment, then said, "These 3 conditions are not too much. We agree." After the matter was settled, Xiaoling Yu naturally wouldn't enjoy the delicacies in this secret room, and Fatty Tian had someone arrange another quiet room for Xiaoling Yu to recuperate. As soon as Xiaoling Yu left, Chen Xiao came to this secret room from the secret room next door. How dare you negotiate with us? How arrogant. The smile on Fatty Tian's face disappeared. It was replaced by a cold expression and a murderous aura. Chen Xiao only frowned and didn't reply. How is it? Can you finish him in 100 breaths? Fatty Tian asked Chen Xiao. If nothing unexpected happens, it will take at most 10 moves. However, I can't see through him. This is a huge surprise. I believe that his strength is not inferior to mine. Although I can be sure that he hasn't reached the ascension stage, it's obvious that he hasn't used his full strength in the previous 65 matches. Perhaps he still has many powerful moves that he hasn't used, Chen Xiao said coldly. Haha, it's rare that there's a cultivator below the ascension stage that you think so highly of. However, no matter how strong he is destined to die under your nether heaven wave. His nascent soul will help you cultivate the nether heaven wave. The more powerful he is, the more advantageous it will be for our bet. Fatty Tian smiled in relief and then said, in order to ensure that the majority of the gamblers bet on his victory, and in order for those gamblers to place bigger bets, before you fight with him, you have to go through a special battle first. What special match? Chen Xiao asked. Challenge the Ascension Stage Elite. Fatty Tian said. Are you asking me to die? Although I boast that I'm invincible below the Ascension Stage, you should know that there's still a big gap between me and the Ascension Stage Elite. I can barely protect myself against them, let alone attack them. The effect of my nether heaven wave on the Ascension Stage Elite is almost negligible. Chen Xiao's expression changed and he shook his head. Ha, don't worry. Asking you to challenge the Ascension Stage Elite is just a show for everyone. Fatty Tian waved his hand and said, the Ascension Stage Elite we've invited will definitely hold back during the match. He will only injure you severely. Think about it, Shaolin Yu is at his peak, and you're severely injured. When the two of you fight on the stage, won't there be more gamblers betting on his victory? Chen Xiao laughed coldly and said, you're really confident in me. You're asking me to fight with an elite whose strength I can't see through, even though I'm severely injured. Fatty Tian said, I'm confident in the nether heaven wave. Of course, I'll have to ask the higher-ups about this. If the higher-ups reject this suggestion, you can fight with him in your best condition. Chen Xiao snorted and said, based on my understanding of you, your suggestion will definitely be approved. With that, Chen Xiao turned and left the secret room. What made Shaolin Yu angry and helpless was that in the next few matches, his opponents were not ordinary characters. Even if they were not experts at the peak of the late stage of the Holy God stage, they were tough guys with special divine powers. None of them were weaker than Meng Zhong. Shaolin Yu did not question Fatty Tian because he knew that even if he did, Fatty Tian would say that there was no problem with his arrangement. After all, Shaolin Yu had won and did not suffer any serious injuries. Anyway, the reward was indeed increased by 20 times. Shaolin Yu also received a large sum of divine psychic stones. This was something he could take comfort in. Moreover, Fatty Tian had also fulfilled a condition, which was that before Shaolin Yu's 66th battle began, he had told everyone that Shaolin Yu would only be able to fight another 10 battles at most in this battle arena. With so many practitioners as witnesses, it was believed that this underground arena, which had always boasted of its excellent reputation, would not go back on its word. In 9 consecutive matches, Shaolin Yu had defeated 9 Holy God stage experts who had been famous for a long time. Naturally, his reputation in this underground arena had reached the peak. Many cultivators were shouting for him to challenge Chen Xiao, or for Chen Xiao to challenge him. The underground arena's owner had been increasing the publicity for Shaolin Yu. The number of practitioners who bet on Shaolin Yu's victory had been increasing. The amount of money bet on Shaolin Yu had also increased exponentially. Shaolin Yu only had one last battle left, but this battle still hadn't arrived for a long time. He was waiting very patiently, silently recovering his energy. Shaolin Yu's battle had yet to begin, but a very shocking piece of news had already spread from the underground arena. Chen Xiao, who had won 136 consecutive matches in this underground arena and was known to be invincible under the Master of Heaven, was going to challenge a Master of Heaven. This news surprised many practitioners and filled them with anticipation. In their memory, there had never been a case of a holy god stage expert winning against a master of heaven. The gap between the holy god stage and the master of heaven was far greater than the gap between the emperor god stage and the holy god stage. Everyone had witnessed Chen Zhao's strength and there was no doubt about it. However, this was only under the master of heaven. Everyone felt that there was less than a 20% chance that he could defeat a master of heaven. The underground gambling house had also opened a bet for this cross-level challenge. If Chen Zhao won, the practitioners who bet on him would receive 500 times the amount of their bet. However, if the Master of Heaven won, the practitioners who bet on him would only receive 30% of their bet. As a result, many cultivators who had confidence in Chen Zhao and were willing to take a gamble, and were greedy for the 500-fold compensation, placed their bets on Chen Zhao. The battle between Chen Zhao and the Master of Divine Mastery cultivator began a month after the news spread. The battle between the two of them was very exciting. Both of them went back and forth, and it took more than 10 moves for the victor to be decided. In the end, Chen Zhao lost to the unknown Master of Heaven due to the difference in their cultivation levels and was severely injured. Chapter 7:10. Chen Zhao's defeat was honorable. Not every cultivator in the Holy God stage could exchange blows with a Divine Master. Most holy gods could not even withstand a single blow from a Divine Master, but Chen Zhao was defeated after exchanging dozens of blows with the Divine Master. The underground gambling house did not earn many psychic divine stones from the fight between Chen Zhao and the Divine Master. After all, most of the cultivators were relatively calm. Moreover, from the payout ratio set by the gambling house, it could be seen that the underground gambling house favored the Divine Master to win. When everyone saw Chen Zhao's courage and ability to exchange dozens of blows with the Divine Master, less than 2 months had passed. It was said that Chen Zhao, who had just recovered from his coma for less than 3 days, issued a challenge to Shaolin Yu. Chen Zhao had just been defeated, which ended his winning streak. He had the right to challenge Shaolin Yu. Shaolin Yu did not have the right to decide whether to accept the challenge or not. It was entirely up to the owner of the underground fighting ring to decide. To everyone's surprise, the owner of the underground fighting ring accepted and arranged the fight. Before the fight even began, the gambling house had already opened. If Shaolin Yu won, the cultivators who bet on him would receive 90% of the payout. If Chen Zhao won, the cultivators who bet on him would receive an additional 10% of the payout in addition to the full amount of their bet. From the payout ratio set by the dealer, it could be seen that the dealer favored Shaolin Yu to win. After all, Shaolin Yu had just defeated 9 famous cultivators in a row. He was also very powerful. Chen Zhao, on the other hand, had yet to recover from his serious injuries. In addition, Shaolin Yu had a lot of supporters. This caused more than 80% of the gamblers to place large amounts of their bets on Shaolin Yu. Only a small number of enthusiasts who had almost blind faith in Chen Zhao placed their bets on him. Of course, there were also some cultivators who placed their bets on a draw. If it was a draw, they would receive more than twice the payout. "Senior Zhao, there must be something wrong here," Zhang Fang reminded him. "That's right." Chen Zhao issued a challenge to Senior Zhao as soon as he woke up from his coma. "This doesn't make sense." He Tai was also confused. He's obviously trying to trick the gamblers into betting on me," Shaolin Yu said with a smile. But Chen Zhao is severely injured after all. No matter how strong he is, he can't possibly defeat Senior Zhao in his severely injured state, right? Zhang Fang was still very doubtful. Even if Chen Zhao is seriously injured, he should not be underestimated. Besides, only he himself knows if he is seriously injured, Shaolin Yu said. That's true. If Chen Zhao wasn't severely injured, we'd have to be careful when dealing with him. He Tai nodded. "You guys bet all the Empyrean Spirit Stones we got on me. This time, the underground gambling house is going to bleed a lot. They're too confident." Shaolin Yu calmly instructed Zhang Fang and He Tai, and then went to her own private room to meditate. Although they heard Shaolin Yu's confident words, Zhang Fang and Yi Tai were obviously not confident in Shaolin Yu. They appeared to be very hesitant. These Empyrean Spirit Stones were all earned by Senior Xiao. If he loses, so be it, Zhang Fang said. If Senior Xiao loses, we have so many Empyrean Spirit Stones. We can still open that stone door, Yi Tai said noncommittally. I don't think Senior Xiao will lose. Don't forget how we were subdued by him. If the two of us fought here, we would also get a good result. But in front of him, even if we worked together, we would not be able to resist, Zhang Fang analyzed. We have to be clear about this. The outcome of the key matches in the underground arena is often controlled by the gambling house. This time, it's obvious that the gambling house wants to use Senior Xiao to turn the tables and recoup all their losses. For this reason, they even used Chen Xiao to challenge the Empyrean Spirit Stones as bait. We can't be like those irrational fellows. On the surface, the gambling house thinks that Senior Xiao will win, but this is actually to mislead the gamblers and give them a false signal. This time, Chen Xiao will most likely win, Yi Tai shook his head and said with a smile. Even if Senior Xiao loses, he has already asked us to bet all our Empyrean Spirit Stones on him. If we do the opposite, won't we be in danger when the battle ends? Zhang Fang said worriedly. Have you seen anyone who can survive Chen Xiao's attack? Who can walk off the stage alive after fighting with Chen Xiao? Yi Tai said with a cold smile. You're saying that not only will Senior Xiao lose, but he will also die? Zhang Fang asked in surprise. No matter what, we should take a gamble. Don't forget, he planted a restriction in our souls. Even if he brings us into the ancient cave abode, we won't get a share of the benefits. We'll only have wasted our efforts. Moreover, after we've lost our value, he said he'll definitely kill us. After all, he's not an Empyrean Spirit Stone cultivator. He'll definitely be worried that we'll tell others about the treasures he obtained and kill us, Yi Tai analyzed with a gloomy expression. I've always felt that a cultivator like Senior Xiao wouldn't be blindly confident. He definitely has the ability to defeat Chen Xiao. Zhang Fang still couldn't make up his mind. To ensure that Chen Xiao wins, we can reveal some information about Senior Xiao to Chen Xiao. For example, his 8 puppets in black armor, Yi Tai said with a sinister smile. Since we'll die if he wins, why don't we bet on him losing? Zhang Fang was finally persuaded. Immediately, Zhang Fang and Yi Tai went to the gambling house and bet all the Empyrean Spirit Stones Shaolin Yu had won on Chen Xiao's victory. After that, before Zhang Fang and Yi Tai could find Chen Xiao, Fatty Tian had already found them. Fatty Tian took out a storage bag with 500,000 Empyrean Spirit Stones in order to get Zhang Fang and Yi Tai to reveal Shaolin Yu's strength. The two of us haven't been with him for long. We only know that he has 8 puppets in black armor, or rather, 8 clones in black armor. Each of them is close to the peak of the late-stage Holy God stage. Moreover, we don't know if these 8 are puppets or clones in black armor. They can combine their domains and unleash extremely powerful combat strength. This should be his trump card, Yi Tai said honestly after keeping the storage bag. Fatty Tian was clearly satisfied with this answer. After asking Zhang Fang and Yi Tai to leave, he invited Chen Xiao in. How are you? How are your injuries? Fatty Tian asked Chen Xiao. That Empyrean Spirit Stone cultivator didn't go easy on me. He almost killed me. Chen Xiao said indignantly. There were so many cultivators watching at the time. Some of them had good eyesight. It wasn't easy to fool them. I'm sorry you had to suffer, Fatty Tian said helplessly. After this battle, I'm going to cultivate in seclusion for a while. I feel like the door to the Empyrean Spirit Stone is open for me, Chen Xiao said calmly. Fatty Tian's eyes lit up. Congratulations. It seems that letting you challenge the Empyrean Spirit Stone cultivator has helped you a lot. As long as you win this battle, I believe the higher-ups will allow you to cultivate in seclusion. When you advance to the Empyrean Spirit Stone, our overall strength will improve by leaps and bounds. Chen Xiao put on a fake smile. Fatty Tian then repeated Yi Tai's words to Chen Xiao. If it were puppets, it would be easy to deal with. It would just be a little troublesome if there were too many of them. However, if it were clones, there would be as many as 8 of them at once. Moreover, each of them isn't weak. In my current state, even if I win, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Chen Xiao paused for a moment and said, I need a Empyrean spirit treasure. Fatty Tian smiled and waved his hand. A pair of gloves that seemed to be made of transparent silk appeared in front of Chen Xiao's eyes. Chen Xiao's emotionless face immediately changed slightly. There was an obvious look of desire on his face. This pair of gloves is made from the silk of the invisible spirit silkworm. It's of Empyrean spirit treasure quality. It has 2 remarkable powers, invisibility and binding. You only need to pour some power into it to be able to use these 2 remarkable powers. There are still 2 months before the battle. You should be able to complete the initial refinement, Fatty Tian said with a smile. Chen Xiao held the gloves in his hand. His expression gradually returned to normal. He said, You guys seem to be able to think ahead of everything. With the help of these invisible spirit gloves, there shouldn't be any problem defeating Shaolin Yu, right? Fatty Tian asked. It's not a sure thing, but the chances of winning will increase by at least 30%. Unless Shaolin Yu also has Empyrean spirit treasures, and many of them, Chen Xiao replied. Don't worry. If he has Empyrean spirit treasures, why would he fight for some Empyrean spirit stones? Fatty Tian said confidently. 2 months later, the Luo Shao Workshop's underground arena finally ushered in what could be called the pinnacle of the Saint God stage. The 2 powerhouses, who were also known to be invincible below the heavenly arrival level, stood in the same arena at the same time. For this battle, the underground arena's spectators' stand was enlarged by 10 times. The original arena and spectators' stand were all included in the arena. There were no empty seats. The arena was surrounded by densely packed cultivators. They were cheering for the powerhouses they supported. The gambling house had been closed. It was said that 70% of the gamblers had placed their bets on Shaolin Yu, and the bets were quite large. Standing in the arena, Shaolin Yu's expression was calm, and his breathing was steady. Today, Chen Xiao seemed to have yet to recover from his serious injuries. His face was paler than usual, and even his lips were slightly pale. However, his breathing was steady, and his expression was solemn. After a long speech from the presiding cultivator, the battle officially began. Chen Xiao, as usual, liked to take the initiative from the beginning. He attacked first, and he was used to using his fists and feet. Close combat was actually Shaolin Yu's strong suit, so he calmly waved his hands and raised his feet to meet the attack. Whether it was strength or short-distance movement speed, Shaolin Yu was not inferior to Chen Xiao. He was also a veteran of hundreds of battles, and his battle awareness and skills were even. Therefore, the 2 of them were evenly matched at the beginning of the battle. Neither of them had the upper hand. However, after a few probing moves, Chen Xiao, who liked to take the initiative to attack, changed his tactics first. Waves of transparent waves emerged, and soon occupied the entire arena. Chapter 7:11. Not only could the transparent ripples seal space and form a domain, but they could also greatly reduce a cultivator's speed. They could even penetrate a cultivator's body and affect their nascent soul and soul. Fortunately, Shaolin Yu's nascent soul was protected by rings of chaotic light. The strength of the transparent ripples was not strong enough to break through the chaotic light and cause too much trouble for the chaotic divine nascent soul. As for the soul, Shaolin Yu's golden soul pearl had exploded on its own several times before. It was fine even under those circumstances, so how could it be suppressed by the transparent ripples? However, if it were an ordinary cultivator, they would not be able to last long in the transparent ripples, let alone be in peak condition. Shaolin Yu knew that Chen Xiao was only going to unleash his true power when he used the transparent ripples. In other words, the real battle had only just begun. Faced with an expert like Chen Xiao, Shaolin Yu was confident that he could win, but he did not dare to be careless. He summoned his 8 clones and used their combined domains to suppress the transparent ripples. However, even the combined domains of the 8 clones could only weaken the transparent ripple's power. They could not suppress it because the transparent ripples were not a domain, but a special ability with extremely strong penetration. Chen Zhao's entire body was enveloped by the transparent ripples, which could reduce the effects of the multiple domains by more than half. At this point, neither of them took any further action. Under the cover of the transparent ripples and the multiple domains, they clashed head-on once again. In the previous battle, both of them were too fast. Many cultivators with low cultivation levels could not see clearly. Now that both of them were restricted by each other, their speed was greatly reduced. This allowed most of the cultivators to see their attacks clearly. Only then did they realize how dangerous the battle between two experts who had already reached the peak of the Saint God stage was. After fighting for another 10 minutes, they were still evenly matched. Xiaoling Yu made a change. His primordial fire surged out of his body and quickly took over the entire arena. However, to Xiaoling Yu's surprise, Chen Zhao suddenly threw out 8 jade talismans. The 8 jade talismans flew rapidly toward the 8 clones. Due to the limitations of the translucent ripples, the small size of the arena, and the speed of the 8 jade talismans, none of the 8 clones were able to dodge. The 8 jade talismans exploded beside the 8 black-armored avatars and turned into a golden light. The golden light transformed into countless specks of golden light that enveloped the 8 black-armored avatars. Under the cover of the golden light, Xiaoling Yu actually lost her connection with the 8 clones. However, even without Xiaoling Yu's control, the 8 clones still had their own battle awareness. They continuously attacked the golden light around them in an attempt to escape. However, the rings of golden light were extremely sturdy. They were like impenetrable cages, firmly restraining the 8 black armor avatars. Chen Zhao obviously knew that Xiaoling Yu had 8 doppelgangers, which was why he was prepared. It would be difficult for the 8 clones to escape in a short period of time. Xiaoling Yu, on the other hand, did not have this trump card. He was already prepared to let the 8 clones spin rapidly into a black halo. Unfortunately, Chen Zhao made the first move. Once the 8 clones were trapped, their multiple combined territories naturally disappeared. Chen Zhao's translucent ripples were no longer restrained and its power increased greatly. However, even without the 8 clones, Xiaoling Yu was still confident that he could defeat Chen Zhao. Xiaoling Yu's expression did not change. With a thought, the divine weapon, Yin-Yang Mirror, appeared. He poured some chaotic divine power into it and 4 phantom monsters appeared at the same time. The 4 symbols territory replaced the 8 clones' multiple combined territories and suppressed the translucent ripple's power. Not only could the 4 phantom monsters use multiple combined territories, but they were also not affected by the translucent ripples and could attack Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao knew about the existence of the 8 clones, but he did not know how powerful the 4 phantom monsters were. Naturally, he was not prepared for this. The appearance of the 4 phantom monsters caused Chen Zhao a lot of trouble. He had to improvise. More translucent ripples were released from his body and quickly divided into 4, surrounding the 4 phantom monsters. However, what surprised Chen Zhao was that although the 4 translucent ripples he released landed accurately on the 4 phantom monsters and surrounded them in an instant, the 4 phantom monsters rushed out right after. The 4 phantom monsters attacked together with Xiaoling Yu. This gave Chen Zhao a headache. The arena was not large, which was also his disadvantage. He needed to dodge, but there was not enough space to do so. If this dragged on, it would be very disadvantageous for Chen Zhao. The golden light released by the 8 jade talismans could not trap the 8 clones for too long. Once the 8 clones regained their freedom, Chen Zhao did not know how he could win with the help of the 4 phantom monsters that were not afraid of any attacks. Victory and defeat had to be decided before the 8 clones regained their freedom. Chen Zhao was a little annoyed with Fatty Tian's previous arrangement. If he had not been seriously injured, he could have used many of the heavenly underworld waves. But now, if he wanted to win, he could only rely on the power of the divine spiritual treasure. Chen Zhao and Fatty Tian had originally thought that other than the 8 clones' powerful divine spiritual powers, Xiao Yu's physical quality was higher and his physical strength was stronger. There was not much to praise about him. However, when he really fought with Xiao Yu on the same stage, Chen Xiao realized that he knew too little about Xiao Yu, and that Xiao Yu had revealed too few trump cards in the previous battles. So what if you're strong? As long as you're not a divine spiritual master, you're going to die today. Chen Xiao made up his mind. The invisible spirit gloves, which were almost transparent, appeared on his hands. Hide! Chen Xiao let out a soft cry, and his figure quickly turned transparent before disappearing into nothingness. Xiao Yu frowned immediately. He could no longer see or even feel Chen Xiao's existence. Just as Xiao Yu was feeling surprised, a fist suddenly appeared and smashed hard on his back. Chen Xiao's figure was revealed, but then it gradually disappeared. Xiao Yu, on the other hand, was sent flying forward by the punch and almost fell off the stage. After stabilizing his body, Xiao Yu spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. His face was pale. Chen Xiao's strength is more than 10 times stronger than before. Are his gloves a divine spiritual treasure? Feeling the pain on his back and the feeling that his spine was about to break, Xiao Yu was even more shocked. While he was still in shock, Chen Xiao appeared again on Xiao Yu's left. Because they were too close and Xiao Yu could not make a judgment in advance, Chen Xiao's fist also landed solidly on Xiao Yu's shoulder. Xiao Yu was once again sent flying far away. His entire arm bones had cracked just now. Chen Xiao turned invisible again. Xiao Yu used his mind and a pale golden jade tablet appeared above his head. Then, circles of pale golden light enveloped him. The golden jade tablet was a divine spiritual treasure. It had been in Xiao Yu's dantian since he came out of the black vortex. He still did not understand where the jade tablet came from. However, he had already refined it when he was hiding in the chaos spectrum. The golden jade tablet was one of the trump cards that Xiao Yu was confident that he could defeat Chen Xiao. Chen Xiao appeared suddenly beside Xiao Yu again. However, when his fist landed on the pale golden light, it was as if he had punched cotton. Then, he was bounced far away by the pale golden light. In fact, Xiao Yu still had 3 trump cards. The first was to hide in the chaos spectrum. This trump card could guarantee that his life would not be in danger. The second was the chair-shaped divine spiritual treasure. This trump card was both offensive and defensive. The third was the heavenly eye of destruction between his eyebrows. This was an extremely powerful trump card. In addition, the golden jade tablet that he had used now had an extremely strong defensive power. Xiao Yu had 4 trump cards. Each of them was as effective as the 8 black carapace doppelgangers or the 4 shadow monsters. With so many trump cards, how could Xiao Yu not win? Unless Chen Xiao was a divine spiritual master. When Xiao Yu was hit by Chen Xiao's 2 punches, Zhang Fang and Yi Tai, who were watching from the spectators' stand, were secretly pleased. They secretly thought that they had made the right bet. However, when they saw the strong defensive power of the golden jade piece, they could not help but worry again. Whether it was the chaos spectrum, the chair-shaped divine spiritual treasure, or the heavenly eye of destruction, Xiao Yu would not use them unless he had no other choice. Especially when he was surrounded by so many cultivators. Therefore, Xiao Yu held onto the jade tablet and constantly shifted his position on the stage. This was to avoid Chen Xiao's attacks that could come at any time. He quietly waited for the 8 black carapace doppelgangers to regain their freedom. Xiao Yu was moving at high speed. Although Chen Xiao was invisible, it was not easy for him to hit Xiao Yu. Bind! Chen Xiao finally activated the other remarkable power of the spirit-concealing gloves. His gloves quickly turned into a large silk net, entangling Xiao Yu and the jade tablet. Xiao Yu could no longer move. Chen Xiao continued to use his most powerful attacks on him. However, the jade slip was a defensive divine spirit treasure after all. How could its defense be so easily breached? Moreover, the spirit-concealing gloves were only used for binding. It could not help Chen Xiao attack. Chen Xiao was not a divine spiritual master. Naturally, he could not break through the divine spiritual treasure's defense. Moreover, the 4 shadow monsters were attacking Chen Xiao continuously. He could not use his full strength. The 8 black carapace doppelgangers finally regained their freedom. The light veil around them dissipated, and their multiple combined territories once again enveloped the entire arena. I admit defeat. Chen Xiao's old injuries acted up. He kept coughing up blood. After admitting defeat, he immediately floated off the stage and disappeared. We're done for. Zhang Fang and Itai's faces were filled with despair. They knew that what awaited them was only bad karma. Useless. Chapter 712. Chen Xiao concedes defeat. Xiao Lingyu wins. When the judge announced the result of the battle, Xiao Lingyu put away his supernatural powers and Dharma treasures and calmly walked down from the arena. The arena, which had been temporarily expanded by 10 times, erupted with waves of cheers that were as loud as a tsunami. To many gamblers, they cared more about the result than the process of the battle. More than 70% of the gamblers had bet on Xiao Lingyu. Now that Xiao Lingyu had won, they naturally made a fortune. How could they not be excited? Although there were a few cultivators who had bet on Chen Xiao's victory who cursed, their voices were drowned out. They could only smile helplessly. When he reached Zhang Fang and Itai, Xiao Lingyu said, "If I'm not wrong, you must have bet on Chen Xiao's victory." Zhang Fang and Itai did not dare to make a sound. They lowered their heads guiltily. It's a good thing that I won 4 million psychic divine stones from this battle. Otherwise, we'd have to worry about the 300 psychic divine stones. Xiao Lingyu did not immediately blame Zhang Fang and Itai. After saying that, he went to collect his prize for winning the battle. Come with me. After collecting 4 million psychic divine stones, Xiao Lingyu led Zhang Fang and Itai to the arena's entrance. As he was a celebrity, he naturally attracted a lot of attention. Moreover, he had just defeated Chen Xiao, so his reputation was at its peak. Countless cultivators followed behind Xiao Lingyu as if to send him off. Everyone knew that Xiao Lingyu and Chen Xiao's battle was the last battle. With so many cultivators watching, the person in charge of the underground arena naturally would not go back on his word and stop Xiao Lingyu. However, as Xiao Lingyu walked down the stairs to the ground, he heard a voice. "Xiao Daoyu, can you talk to me for a while longer? I should go." "Xiao Daoyu, I have something good to talk to you about." "We'll talk about it later." Since fellow Taoist is in a hurry to leave, I'll be frank with you. We'd like to invite fellow Taoists to stay and continue fighting. We can increase the rewards by 100 times for each battle. Then let's talk about it the next time I come. I won't be leaving for long anyway. If fellow Taoist Tian is sincere, you shouldn't mind waiting for a few more days. Fellow Taoist, you might not know, but our underground arena is actually set up by a powerful organization. There are many markets on Heavenly Saint Island, and our organization not only has the top 10 experts on Heavenly Saint Island, but also many Heavenly Saint experts. If a young genius like fellow Taoist is chosen by the organization, your future will definitely be limitless. I see. Let me think about it for a few days. Alright then. I'll wait for Xiao Daoyu's reply. However, I'll first pass on some information about you to the experts of the organization. I hope you'll keep your word and come back. Fatty Tian's voice stopped there. His last sentence clearly carried a hint of threat. Accompanied by countless gamblers, Xiao Lingyu exited the underground arena and left Luoxia Lane. Then, he flew up into the sky. As he flew up, Xiao Lingyu brought out his tubular sacred artifact. Next, he activated his greater teleportation. As soon as Xiao Lingyu disappeared into the sky, a cultivator with unfathomable cultivation appeared where he had been. The cultivator frowned and looked around. He muttered, "That kid ran pretty fast." In a secret room in Luoxia Lane's underground arena, Fatty Tian pointed at the pale Chen Xiao and said, "Even with the help of the heavenly spiritual treasure, the spirit-concealing glove, he still lost to that guy and made us lose hundreds of millions of divine psychic stones. What a piece of trash." Chen Zhao's face turned even uglier after being scolded. He glared at Fatty Tian and said, "If you think you're good, why don't you go up and try yourself? If I need to go up, what's the use of keeping you around?" Fatty Tian said coldly. "If you didn't ask me to challenge a divine master before my battle with him and fight with him with my injured body, would I have lost?" Chen Zhao retorted indignantly. "Are you doubting my arrangement?" Fatty Tian asked with narrowed eyes. "There's no need to doubt your arrangement. It's obviously very stupid," Chen Zhao said bluntly. "You're asking for it." Fatty Tian flew into a rage. Unfortunately, Fatty Tian had just slammed the table when Chen Zhao grabbed him by the neck. "How dare you lay your hands on me? Do you know that there's a divine master from an organization here?" After all, Fatty Tian was only at the holy god stage. How could he be a match for Chen Zhao? He had no power to resist at all when Chen Zhao grabbed his neck. "Humph. Do you think I don't know that this underground arena was set up by the Holy Army? The Holy Army set up this arena not to gather divine psychic stones, but to find and win over promising powerhouses. So what if I lose some divine psychic stones? What the Holy Army cares about is powerhouses, not mere divine psychic stones." As he spoke, Chen Zhao increased the strength of his palm. He was still wearing the divine spiritual treasure, the spirit-concealing gloves. "At least this time, I've helped you find Shaolin Yu. If you can recruit him into the Holy Army, wouldn't it be a great merit for you?" Chen Zhao sneered. "However, you're just a fatty without a brain. I don't think you'll be able to win him over. What's the use of keeping a mediocre person like you in the Holy Army? If I kill you here, the Holy Army won't even feel the slightest bit of heartache." As he spoke, Chen Zhao increased the strength of his palm and broke Fatty Tian's neck. Chen Zhao's hand fell and pierced Fatty Tian's lower abdomen. He took out the nascent soul and sealed it with a transparent wave. Then, he put it away in his storage artifact. Smack! Smack! A cultivator walked into the secret chamber and praised, "You've got guts, you've got guts." Chen Zhao looked at the cultivator and realized that it was the master of divine mastery who had fought with him before. He immediately cupped his hands and bowed, saying, "I believe you won't come looking for trouble with me just because I killed this fatty, right?" The cultivator shook his head. "He's just a divine master. His death is not to be regretted. There are countless divine masters like him in the Holy Army. However, since you've killed him today, there will be no one to take care of the Luo Shao Workshop's underground arena. I'll have to find another divine master. It'll be very troublesome." Chen Zhao was also a smart person. He asked directly, "Senior, if you have any orders for me, just say it." The cultivator smiled and nodded. "It's easy to talk to you. Since you've killed Fatty Tian, the Holy Army has one less steward. I can only ask you to swear an oath to join the Holy Army. If you become a member of the Holy Army, your killing of Fatty Tian will be an internal matter of the Holy Army. Naturally, the Holy Army will not send out any divine master to punish you. However, if you're not a member of the Holy Army, even if Fatty Tian deserved to die, he shouldn't have died at the hands of an outsider. Then, the Holy Army will see you as an enemy." Chen Zhao really had no other choice. He had no intention of joining the Holy Army, but now he could only nod in front of this divine master. Chen Zhao knew that if he refused to join the Holy Army, this divine master, who seemed to be amiable at the moment, would definitely fall out with him in the next moment. Chen Zhao had seen how powerful this divine master was before. Even with the soul-concealing gloves, he still couldn't defeat him. As the saying goes, a wise man submits to circumstances. "I'm very satisfied with your performance. I believe that the Holy Army's experts will welcome you." After Chen Zhao made the oath, the divine master gave him a storage pouch. He then said, "There's your identity token as a member of the Holy Army, as well as a set of golden armor and a golden spear. These are all standard equipment. Can you give me the soul-concealing gloves?" Chen Zhao asked after receiving the storage pouch. "Of course." The divine master first gave an affirmative answer, but then he said, "However, divine spiritual treasures are not divine weapons. Even if the Holy Army is powerful, they don't have many divine spiritual treasures. I can give you the soul-concealing gloves, but you must first be qualified to own them. In other words, you must first ascend to the Divine Master realm. Of course, now that you're only half a step away from the Divine Master realm, the Holy Army will provide you with all the help you need to ascend to the Divine Master realm. Although he was reluctant to part with the gloves, Chen Xiao still took off the soul-concealing gloves and removed their ownership. He then returned them to the Divine Master. I'm only temporarily keeping them for you. These gloves will be yours sooner or later, the Divine Master said after putting away the gloves. Chen Xiao was confident that he could ascend, so he didn't waste any more words. He immediately went to his own secret room. I hope I can see Shaolin Yu again and compete with him again. But if I ascend to the Divine Master realm and he doesn't, it'll be meaningless to fight. Chen Xiao sat down cross-legged. When he thought of this, he laughed bitterly in self-mockery. When did I become so competitive? After the great shift, Shaolin Yu put away the tubular divine weapon and then landed in a forest. There's a market 3,000 miles to the east. You two go in and collect the materials. I'll wait for you here. After instructing Zhang Fang and Yi Tai, Shaolin Yu directly disappeared and entered the chaos spectrum. Zhang Fang and Yi Tai were very surprised by Shaolin Yu's sudden disappearance. They didn't feel any spatial fluctuations when he teleported, and they couldn't tell how Shaolin Yu had disappeared at all. Zhang Fang and Yi Tai didn't dare to tarry in the same place. They immediately flew east. Perhaps if we perform well, this senior Shao will let us go. With this thought in mind, Zhang Fang and Yi Tai began to seriously purchase the materials in the market. Naturally, one market couldn't collect all the materials. However, with the tubular divine weapon that allowed them to teleport, Zhang Fang and Yi Tai could quickly reach any market nearby under Shaolin Yu's lead. The speed at which they collected the materials was naturally not slow. In less than 10 days, Zhang Fang and Yi Tai spent 3 million psychic divine stones to purchase all the materials. Chapter 713. In order to recover as soon as possible, Shaolin Yu naturally had to recuperate in the chaotic spectrum. 20,000 years had passed in the chaotic spectrum, but only 2 years had passed in the outside world. Shaolin Yu's injuries had already healed. In these 2 years, Zhang Fang and Yi Tai could be said to have suffered. Every day felt like a year. They did not know what was waiting for them. Anyone would hate being betrayed. The stronger the person, the more intolerable it was. Zhang Fang and Yi Tai knew that the two of them were still useful to Shaolin Yu, so they were still safe and sound. Once the stone door was opened, they would lose their usefulness and would most likely be killed. Naturally, they would not sit still and wait for death. While purchasing materials and waiting for Shaolin Yu to recuperate, they braced themselves and did some small tricks. If they did not struggle while they were still useful, it would be too late when they were no longer useful. In any case, even if they were discovered, Shaolin Yu would not kill them so easily. Shaolin Yu had searched Zhang Fang and Yi Tai's souls, so he naturally knew the exact location of the cave dwelling left behind by the ancient expert. After recuperating, he took out his tubular sacred weapon and teleported over with Zhang Fang and Yi Tai. They were in a remote mountain forest on Tongtian Sacred Island. At this moment, Shaolin Yu was looking at a mountain surrounded by verdant trees. The mountain was not very tall, nor was it very majestic. It looked ordinary and there was nothing praiseworthy about it. Halfway up the mountain, there was a cave covered by bushes and weeds. If one did not look carefully or use their divine sense to search carefully, they would not be able to find the cave at all. The cave dwelling left behind by the ancient expert was in the depths of the cave. Take out the materials for the formation, Shaolin Yu instructed Zhang Fang and Yi Tai. Zhang Fang and Yi Tai were very obedient. They immediately took out a small portion of the materials they had purchased earlier. According to the previous plan, they had to set up some concealment formations and restrictions at the entrance of the cave to cover the entrance. At the same time, they had to prevent the aura from leaking out when the stone door was opened. Shaolin Yu had studied the Tao of array formations of the Liao Zhou inheritance for many years. Until now, it was not difficult for him to set up some supreme-grade divine arrays. With all the materials, Xiaoling Yu used less than 4 hours to set up more than a dozen top-grade illusory formations and 3 maze formations at the entrance of the cave. To be safe, he also set up hundreds of high-level prohibitions. When all the formations and restrictions were connected, the mountain didn't look much different from before. Ordinary cultivators could see it from afar, but it was very difficult for them to get close. Moreover, there was a misty white fog around the mountain. After that, they entered the cave. Along the way, Xiaoling Yu set up many high-level restrictions and spirit arrays, causing Zhang Fang and Yitai to frown. The formations and restrictions outside were enough to trap most Saint God experts. Even heaven-reaching realm experts would be trapped for a period of time if they were not proficient in formations. Coupled with the layout of the cave, even heaven-reaching realm experts would find it difficult to advance quickly. After walking close to 100,000 feet in the cave, Xiaoling Yu finally saw the stone door. The stone door looked extremely thick. There was a stone carving of a dragon's mouth on each of the 2 door pages. The 2 stone knockers were held in the dragon's mouth. On the 2 pages of the door, there were countless strange patterns that looked very blurry and very fine. According to Zhang Fang and Yitai's many years of research, the stone door could only be opened by activating the 2 knockers. If they wanted to activate the knockers, they had to make the strange patterns on the 2 door pages clear. This was not a simple matter either. Although the patterns were strange and blurry, if one looked closely, they could see that they depicted many totems. "Take everything out," Lin Feng said. Xiaoling Yu ordered Zhang Fang and Yitai. After all the materials were taken out, Xiaoling Yu said, "You 2 draw the patterns. I'll set up the formations." Zhang Fang and Yitai didn't slack off either. They each took an expensive and specially made writing brush. Then, they opened some bottles and jars of utensils. The brushes were dipped into the jars and dipped into some special liquid. Then, they started to draw on the strange patterns on the stone door. Perhaps it was because the strange patterns were too fine and complicated to distinguish, or perhaps it was because they could not afford to make any mistakes in the process of drawing, or perhaps it was because Zhang Fang and Yitai were too nervous, or perhaps they had other ideas. Their movements were extremely slow, but they appeared to be very serious. Xiaoling Yu first stared at Zhang Fang and Yitai for a while. Seeing that they were quite obedient, he moved a heavy and special disc-shaped rock to his feet. Then, he squatted down and began to draw a hexagonal formation on it. The preparation work for opening the stone door was being carried out in an intense but orderly manner. However, after spending hundreds of years, Xiaoling Yu's formation had long been completed. Zhang Fang and Yitai had only drawn a third of the patterns on the 2 door pages. Every pattern needed to be drawn with a special liquid. However, those patterns were intricate and complicated. It required a lot of time and extremely good eyesight to distinguish them. It was normal to take a little more time. Those special liquids were either the blood essence of some high-level demon beast, the blood essence of some foreign race expert, or the liquid essence nurtured by heaven and earth. There were hundreds of them. Fortunately, they were not very rare. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to collect all of them. While waiting patiently, Xiaoling Yu also picked up a special brush and began to draw on one of the stone doors. Another 200 years had passed. Due to Xiaoling Yu's participation, the speed of drawing increased significantly. Now, more than half of the patterns on the stone door had been clearly drawn. At this juncture, Xiaoling Yu suddenly felt that the illusion formation he had set up outside was being attacked. Xiaoling Yu's brows furrowed. He looked at Zhang Fang and Yitai. Seeing that the 2 of them did not have any strange expressions and were immersed in their work, he was very puzzled. It was obvious that there were experts outside. Those who dared to barge into the formation were definitely not ordinary people. However, even if they were experts in the divine mastery realm, it would still take a long time to rush to the stone door. However, why did the experts outside come at this time? If they had discovered this place before, even if they did not guard it, they would definitely have set up something here. More than 10 years had passed. Xiao Yu was certain that the illusion formation he had set up outside had been broken, and the restriction and formation in the cave had begun to be attacked. The entire cave was shaking violently, but Zhang Fang and Itai's expressions were still very calm. Zhang Fang and Itai were still able to remain calm under such circumstances. This was something that was suspicious. These two fellows must have leaked the secret to other experts when they were collecting materials or when I was recuperating. I did not want to kill these two fellows at first, but they kept seeking death. Xiao Yu's expression was a little gloomy, but he did not say anything. After thinking for a while, he told Zhang Fang and Itai, "You two continue to work here. I'll go inside the cave and block them." After saying that, Xiao Yu turned his back to the stone door and walked away. He was not worried that Zhang Fang and Itai would do anything else, because these two cultivators were the first to discover this place. They would definitely not give up the opportunity to enter so easily. At most, Zhang Fang and Itai would delay for a while, and because they were afraid of angering Xiao Yu, they did not dare to do anything too overboard. The restriction and formation in the cave were all set up by Xiao Yu himself, so he knew the situation in the cave very well. As he walked towards the entrance of the cave, he constantly reinforced the restriction and formation that he had set up. He would also set up some formations and restrictions in the empty space. However, this could only slow down the speed of the other experts, but could not completely block them outside. However, the speed at which the other party destroyed the restriction and formation was getting faster and faster. It was obvious that there was more than one expert outside. Even if Xiao Yu tried his best, he could only hold on for less than 30 years. The experts outside had already rushed to less than 1,000 feet away from the stone door. At this time, Xiao Yu could already see the experts outside through the layers of restriction and formation. As expected, there was more than one expert outside, and there was a large group of them. Xiao Yu could only angrily glare at the guilty Zhang Fang and Itai. He could only help to draw those strange patterns. Although there were many formations and restrictions 1,000 feet away, they could only stop the experts for less than 2 years. At this time, the patterns on the stone door were almost completely drawn. No one knew what was behind the stone door. If they wanted to get the best treasure or gain the upper hand, they definitely had to enter the stone door first. Furthermore, if those experts came to the stone door, they might even attack him. Among so many experts, there might even be heaven-reaching rankers, which was a very dangerous thing for Xiao Yu. Therefore, before the stone door opened, they had to block those experts outside. Therefore, after hesitating for a while, Xiao Yu took out the seat-shaped transcendent saint artifact. The chair-shaped magic treasure had been refined by Xiao Yu. Under Xiao Yu's control, it could change its size at will. At this time, it had already blocked the entire cave. The other party naturally attacked the chair-shaped magic treasure fiercely. However, with the power of the divine weapon, it could definitely hold on for a while. Seeing the chair-shaped magic treasure appear, Zhang Fang and Itai's expressions became extremely gloomy, and there was even some despair. Almost 100 years had passed, and the patterns on the stone door were completely drawn. Then, according to the plan, Xiao Yu activated the special formation that he had set up previously. From the hexagonal formation, rays of blood-red light continuously shot out, bombarding the patterns on the stone door. Those clearly drawn totemic patterns seemed to come alive. They were of different shapes and sizes, moving around the stone door, constantly pouring into the two door knockers. Chapter 7:14. Zhang Fang and Itai began to tremble uncontrollably. Their expressions showed that they were in great pain, and their auras were rising higher and higher. Xiao Yu wasn't worried that Zhang Fang and Itai's strength would rise too much. After all, with the soul restriction controlling them, they wouldn't dare to attack Xiao Yu at all. Another 15 minutes passed, and there were no longer any special patterns surging out from the door knockers. Zhang Fang and Itai's hands involuntarily pulled on one of the door knockers. The door knockers were pulled open by a great force, and the two stone doors were gradually pulled open. An ancient and simple aura gushed out from the crack of the stone door that was constantly being pulled open. Xiaoling Yu didn't feel any danger, but he knew that a place with great opportunities like this would definitely be dangerous. When the stone door was pulled open with a width of 2 feet, Xiaoling Yu's heart stirred. He put away the chair-shaped magic treasure, and then flew through the stone door. When he entered the stone doors, Xiaoling Yu tried to detonate the restrictions he had placed on Zhang Fang and Yitai's souls. Unfortunately, Zhang Fang and Yitai were currently in a special state, and he couldn't detonate the 2 soul restrictions to kill them. Since he wasn't in a hurry, Xiaoling Yu didn't think too much about it and focused on the situation before him. In fact, if he could kill Zhang Fang and Yitai, the stone doors might close, and other experts would be prevented from entering. However, if he really killed Zhang Fang and Yitai, there would be a certain danger. After all, he might have to rely on them to open the door. Xiaoling Yu had been to countless secret places where treasures were hidden. He knew that there was usually more than one way to leave such a place. Entering through the stone doors didn't necessarily mean leaving through the stone doors. Otherwise, he wouldn't have tried to kill Zhang Fang and Yitai just now. Without the obstruction of the chair-like magic treasure, the experts outside naturally rushed to the front of the stone doors. Then, they didn't care about Zhang Fang and Yitai who were in a special state, and all of them rushed through the stone doors without thinking. After entering the stone doors, the first thing that entered Xiaoling Yu's eyes was a mountain not far away. At the peak of the mountain, there was a huge iron tower. Looking at the other places, he could not see any other unusual places. In other words, the key point was the big iron tower at the top of the mountain. As the first to enter, Xiaoling Yu naturally had the advantage. After a few flashes, he arrived in front of the iron tower at the top of the mountain. At this time, the other powerful cultivators were already halfway there. Xiaoling Yu's lead was only for 2 breaths. However, for a powerhouse, the advantage of 2 breaths was already not small. For the sake of these 2 breaths of time, Xiaoling Yu immediately rushed into the first floor of the metal tower, which was completely open. Before entering, Xiaoling Yu also saw a golden plaque on the lintel of the first floor. On it were the words Demon Ceiling Tower written in blood. Perhaps because they saw Xiaoling Yu's resolute figure, the other powerful cultivators were also stimulated. They only stopped in front of the tower for a moment before following into the first floor of the Demon Ceiling Tower. The Demon Ceiling Tower, as its name implied, either had many demon cultivators or demons sealed inside, or this tower had the power to seal demon cultivators or demons. When Xiaoling Yu entered the first floor, he had already wrapped himself in the Primal Chaos True Fire and released the Primal Chaos Divine Power to form a shield. What surprised Xiaoling Yu was that the first floor of the Demon Ceiling Tower was pitch black. His vision and divine sense could not see anything other than pitch black. Moreover, as soon as he entered, he first heard waves of demonic roars that sounded like demons and demons. Then, waves of evil aura surged from all directions. Xiaoling Yu was like this, and so were the other powerful cultivators. Xiaoling Yu's lead of 2 breaths disappeared because of the special environment of the first floor. With the Primal Chaos True Fire burning fiercely, it could illuminate a radius of 1 zhang around him. With the help of the Primal Chaos True Fire's light, Xiaoling Yu saw many strange-looking demons. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced at him, but when they encountered the Primal Chaos True Fire, their bodies emitted wisps of black smoke. Moreover, their expressions were pained and hideous. These demons looked fierce, but in reality, their strength was very ordinary. Most of them were low-level existences. Only a few God Emperor-level existences could be seen occasionally. If he counted on these demons, he would never be able to harm Xiaoling Yu. Xiaoling Yu first familiarized himself with the surroundings, then began to move quickly to investigate the situation on the first floor of the Demon Ceiling Tower. After searching carefully for a long time, during which time he used the Primal Chaos True Fire to burn countless demons, Xiaoling Yu finally found the stairs to the second floor. However, there was a demon stone statue at the entrance of the stairs. Just as Xiaoling Yu approached the entrance of the stairs, the demon stone statue suddenly exploded. Pieces of rock shot out in all directions, and an extremely ugly demon with a pair of bull horns on its forehead and a height of about 10 feet was revealed. The demon stood at the entrance of the stairs like an insurmountable iron tower. However, before Shaolin Yu could react, an outsider expert used a long saber to slash at the demon's body. The demon looked powerful and mighty, but in reality, he only had the strength of a late-stage god emperor. The owner of the long saber, however, was a saint god expert. After that slash, the demon's body was split into two, and he fell down with a loud bang. The owner of the long saber only glanced at Shaolin Yu before flying up the stairs, disappearing from the second floor in the blink of an eye. Shaolin Yu did not dawdle. Seeing that there were more experts behind him, he also went up the stairs to the second floor. The second floor was also pitch black, but the spatial pressure on the second floor was much stronger than on the first floor. Moreover, there were countless demons of different shapes and forms on the second floor, but their overall strength was much higher than on the first floor. However, the demons on the second floor were mostly god emperors. Occasionally, he could feel the presence of a few saint gods. The danger on the second floor was nothing to Shaolin Yu. At most, it made him feel a little troubled. After searching the second floor for close to 2 hours, Shaolin Yu finally found the stairs to the third floor. However, he found that the second floor was about 10 times larger than the first floor. Shaolin Yu arrived at the entrance of the stairs, but found that there were many shattered stones here, and there was also a headless demon corpse. It seemed that there were already experts who had arrived a step earlier, and there were already experts on the third floor. Originally, he still had the advantage, but now, he fell behind. If not for Zhang Fang and Yi Tai's mischief, Shaolin Yu could have taken his time and not been too anxious. He did not need to fight for it, but now, he could not. However, with the primal chaos spectrum, he could hide, and there was no danger to his life, unless he was killed in an instant. With Shaolin Yu's current strength, even heaven-piercing powerhouses would find it difficult to kill him in an instant, so he did not need to be too afraid, and resolutely walked to the third floor. The third floor was still pitch black, but the spatial pressure was stronger, and there were almost all saint gods on the third floor. Shaolin Yu could not help but mutter in his heart, "Is the higher I go, the greater the spatial pressure, and the stronger the demons inside? If this is the case, there are already a lot of saint gods on the third floor. If I continue to go up, won't there be heaven-piercing demons?" One had to know that the Devil Ceiling Tower had 9 floors. Now that he had only reached the third floor, there were still 6 floors above, and there was no guarantee that heaven-piercing powerhouses would not appear. Shaolin Yu did not have the strength to face heaven-piercing powerhouses. If he really did encounter one, he could only hide in the primal chaos spectrum. And this was Shaolin Yu. Other saint gods would find it difficult to go up after reaching the third floor, and they might even die here. What Shaolin Yu did not know was that Zhang Fang and Yi Tai had revealed this information to other powerhouses, and other powerhouses had also revealed this information to other powerhouses of heaven-piercing Holy Island, which led to more and more cultivators coming from all directions. They first passed through the cave, and after entering the stone door, they flew to the Devil Ceiling Tower, and after a little hesitation, they entered the tower. After fighting with the saint gods on the third floor for nearly 3 days, Shaolin Yu finally found the stairs to the fourth floor in this space that was 10 times larger than the second floor. At this time, there were 3 powerhouses fighting with a saint god late-stage demon. These 3 powerhouses were all saint god stage experts, and 2 of them were saint god late-stage experts, and the other one was saint god middle-stage experts. The 3 of them joined forces and naturally suppressed the demon. If they did not want to preserve their strength and not get injured, they would have already finished the battle. Shaolin Yu did not just stand by and watch. He directly released a primal chaos seal and blasted it on the demon that was besieged by the 3 powerhouses. Boom! The demon was already seriously injured, and after being hit by the primal chaos seal, its body directly exploded. The reason why Shaolin Yu attacked was that he did not want to waste time, and he did not want more and more powerhouses to gather. However, Shaolin Yu could still accept the fact that he had to enter the fourth floor with these 3 saint god stage experts. the three powerhouses did not look at Shaolin Yu. After the demon was killed, they immediately rushed to the fourth floor. It seemed that they had known each other before, and they were a team. After going to the fourth floor, the pressure in the space was 10 times stronger than on the third floor. Shaolin Yu felt that if he wanted to fly, the speed of his power consumption would be too fast. Even if he stood on the ground, he would feel that his legs were bending. However, after walking on the ground for a cup of tea's time, he did not find a single demon. It was completely different from the previous 3 floors. After searching for a while, Shaolin Yu saw a demon after 10 days. The demon was also wrapped in a stone statue, as if it was petrified. However, there was no staircase behind the stone statue, but a circle of light that looked very thick. Chapter 7:15. Because the fiend was still in a petrified state, Shaolin Yu could not determine its specific strength. However, it was clear that if he wanted to obtain the jade slip in the light ball, he would have to touch or even break the restriction light ball, which would definitely alarm the petrified fiend. He had come here to seek opportunities, and now that the opportunity was right in front of him, Shaolin Yu had no reason to shrink back. After hesitating for a while, he first took out the yin-yang mirror and summoned the 4 virtual monsters to surround the petrified fiend. To be on the safe side, he also summoned his 8 black armor avatars to surround the 4 shadow monsters. With the 4 symbols domain in the middle and the multiple combination domains outside, Shaolin Yu felt a little more at ease. So, he took a deep breath and smashed his fist forcefully against the ball of light. Bang! A loud explosion rang out. The restriction light sphere trembled violently from the impact, but it did not shatter. The restriction light ball also released a huge rebounding force that pushed Shaolin Yu more than 30 meters away. Boom! With another explosion, the petrified fiend's stone body exploded, revealing its original form. The peak of the late Holy God stage? That's good, that's good. After sensing the fiend's specific cultivation, Shaolin Yu felt a lot more at ease. He did not pay attention to the fiend, but formed a primal chaos seal and blasted it at the restriction light ball. He did not use the primal chaos seal just now because he was worried that the primal chaos seal's power was too strong, and the restriction light ball's defense was too weak, so the primal chaos seal's bombardment would destroy the jade slip inside. Bang! With another explosion, the restriction light ball was bombarded by the primal chaos seal, and cracks appeared on its surface. The fiend looked extremely angry, and it kept roaring and roaring, but it was entangled by the 4 virtual monsters that were not afraid of any attacks, and the 8 black armor avatars released their domains and auras to suppress it. It was very difficult for it to even protect itself and move its body, so it was impossible for it to stop Shaolin Yu. After bombarding it with the primal chaos seal twice, the restriction light ball was finally broken, and it collapsed into flowing light that filled the sky. Shaolin Yu reached out and grabbed the jade slip in his hand. Then, he put it away. As for the Abyss Devil, he didn't have any particularly powerful abilities. Under the combined attacks of the 4 monsters and the 8 black armored avatars, his physical body collapsed and his nascent soul was destroyed. After that, Shaolin Yu first put away the yin-yang mirror and the 8 dark armor clones, and then she hid within the chaotic scripture before sinking her divine perception into the jade slip she'd just obtained. Within this jade slip was an extremely powerful auxiliary technique called the one-finger devil subduing art. It was considered a type of finger seal. Its attack power was extremely domineering, and it was even more effective against evil cultivators or cultivators of the devil Tao. The essence of the one-finger demonic subduing formula was to circulate one's inner chi through a special path, first gathering it in the body's meridians and compressing it during this process. Then, it would flow into the finger and rapidly shoot out, forming a relatively powerful force of impact and penetration. For cultivators who cultivated the one-finger demonic subduing formula, it would be best if their attributes and inner chi were of the purest yang or holy attribute. However, as long as they weren't evil cultivators or cultivators of the devil Tao, they could cultivate it. The only difference was the power they could display. After Shaolin Yu ascended from the cultivation world, he went to the devil world. In theory, he should be considered a cultivator of the devil Tao. Furthermore, his body did indeed possess a demonic nature. Logically speaking, if he cultivated the one-finger demonic subduing formula, there shouldn't be much of an effect. However, after a simple test, he discovered that his finger seal attack wasn't much weaker than the primal chaos seal that was fused with the illusory sky restriction formation. He had reason to believe that if he fused the illusory sky restriction formation with the one-finger demonic subduing formula's finger seal, and if he used it more skillfully, its power should be much stronger than the primal chaos seal. Shaolin Yu cultivated the divine power of the primal chaos. Although he had been demonized, it was still origin energy after all. It had extremely strong compatibility and tolerance. He could most likely cultivate any technique that ordinary cultivators could cultivate. As he continued to deepen his understanding of the one-finger demonic subduing formula, he continued to search for the stairs to the 5th floor and other opportunities. He didn't encounter too much resistance on the first 3 floors, nor did he encounter any powerful demons, so there were no opportunities. However, on the 4th floor, there were opportunities and powerful demons. Furthermore, the space on the 4th floor wasn't small, and the space pressure was extremely high. It wouldn't be easy to find the stairs to the 5th floor. The cultivators who came in with Shaolin Yu would most likely stay on the 4th floor for a while. Among them, there would definitely be many experts who would fight fiercely with the petrified demons in order to obtain treasures. Shaolin Yu estimated that most of the experts would die here. Another half a month passed and Shaolin Yu finally saw another petrified abyssal. Behind this abyssal, there was also a sphere of restriction light. Shaolin Yu couldn't see what was inside the light sphere because it was releasing a gorgeous and dense colorful light, but there was definitely a treasure inside. However, there were 3 saint gods beside the restriction light and the petrified demon. They were the 3 that Shaolin Yu had seen on the stairs to the 3rd floor. 2 were late-stage saint gods, and 1 was mid-stage saint god. Although Shaolin Yu didn't take their strength seriously, they weren't weak either. However, even though the 3 of them were gathered together, they didn't dare to touch the restriction light. Most of their gazes were focused on the petrified demon. The cultivators of the cultivation world had already recognized that no matter how good a treasure was, they had to be alive to enjoy it. When the 3 saint gods saw Shaolin Yu arrive, they all frowned slightly. They seemed to be in a dilemma. Shaolin Yu wasn't in a hurry to fight for the treasure, but he didn't leave either. He silently waited nearby for the 3 cultivators to make their next move. It wasn't easy to find a restriction light ball like this. There shouldn't be many of them on the 4th floor. Since he had found another one, Shaolin Yu naturally had no reason to give up so easily. The 3 saint gods had seen Shaolin Yu in action before. The primal chaos seal that Shaolin Yu had used had left them with lingering fear. The 3 saint gods were even more hesitant as to whether they should attack or not. In the end, one of them said something in a low voice. The 3 saint gods finally made up their minds. They circled behind the petrified demon and used a saint artifact at the same time, attacking the restriction light ball with all their strength. The 3 saint artifacts almost simultaneously slammed into the restriction light ball behind the demon. Unfortunately, although the restriction light ball trembled violently, it showed no signs of breaking. On the other hand, the petrified demon blasted away the rocks around him and charged towards the 3 saint gods with a wave of a thick metal rod. What shocked Shaolin Yu the most was that the Abyss Devil, who had just regained his freedom, swung his iron cudgel, causing everything in the surrounding space to rapidly fly towards the 3 sacred gods. The pressure from the surrounding space directly immobilized the 3 saint gods on the spot. They didn't even have the ability to use any means to resist. In an instant, the large metal rod smashed into the 3 saint gods. Their bodies rapidly shattered like glass after being struck by the rod and turned to dust. This attack is too powerful. Shaolin Yu was dumbstruck. He could also easily finish off the 3 saint gods, but there was no way he could unleash such a tyrannical and unbeatable attack. He could also tell that the demon's attack had borrowed the power of the world, something that only an omnipotent expert could do. In other words, the demon that had just broken free from the petrification was an omnipotent expert. While Xiaoling Yu was still in a daze, the omnipotent demon suddenly turned around after dealing with the three saint gods and arrived in front of Xiaoling Yu in a flash. Xiaoling Yu disappeared from the spot and hid in the primal chaos catalog. Even though the demon possessed an omnipotent ability, it was still very confused by its target's sudden and bizarre disappearance. It waved the large metal rod in its hand and roared in all directions for a while before returning to the restriction light ball, its body gradually being covered by the layer of rocks. Xiaoling Yu only emerged from the primal chaos catalog after the demon returned to its stone form, a grave expression on his face. A treasure guarded by an omnipotent demon, and this restriction light ball looks so sturdy. The treasure must be extraordinary. But dealing with this demon will not be easy. My life may even be in danger. But I can give it a try. After some hesitation, Xiaoling Yu arrived behind the petrified demon and summoned the four monsters. However, he also summoned the divine spirit treasure Jade Piece, allowing it to float above his head and release a golden light barrier to protect himself. Then, he even took out the divine spiritual treasure in the shape of a chair and made it hover above the evil demon's head. Finally, Xiaoling Yu began to activate the Heaven's Eye of Destruction between his brows. However, his target was not the demon, but the restriction light ball. In Xiaoling Yu's opinion, among all his attacks, only the Heaven's Eye of Destruction would be able to break through the colorful light ball. He also had to break through the restriction light ball the moment the demon broke through the petrification. Otherwise, even if he killed the demon with the Heaven's Eye of Destruction, it would be very difficult to break through the colorful light ball in a short period of time. Moreover, even the Heaven's Eye of Destruction between his brows might not be able to kill the demon instantly. If it could not, Xiaoling Yu would be in great danger. After taking a deep breath, Xiaoling Yu roared and immediately opened the vertical eye between his brows. A beam of destructive blood light blasted the colorful light ball. As expected, the colorful light ball exploded instantly, revealing a dark golden box. Just as Xiaoling Yu put the dark golden box into his storage magic treasure, the demon broke free from the petrification around its body. However, at this time, the four phantom monsters fiercely rushed in front of the demon and pulled it up. With a thought from Xiaoling Yu, the chair-shaped divine spiritual treasure smashed down heavily. Chapter 7:16. Fortunately, when the demon was waving the big iron rod, it was hit hard by the chair-like Dharma treasure. Otherwise, Xiaoling Yu would not have been able to withstand its iron rod. Even though its attack was affected, the big iron rod still easily swept through the four illusory monsters, and with the mighty force, it also swept the pale golden light screen. After being hit by the big iron rod, the pale golden light screen caved in. Xiaoling Yu also felt his body being affected by the huge force, and his body involuntarily flew far away. After all, the pale golden light screen was cast by a defensive divine spiritual treasure. Even if it could not completely block the attack of a divine spiritual treasure, it could still reduce the power of most of it. And to be able to penetrate the pale golden light screen and act on Xiaoling Yu's body, it was purely a huge force. As Xiaoling Yu flew backward, he quickly put away the yin-yang mirror and the chair-like Dharma treasure. When the divine spiritual demon came back to his senses and waved the big iron rod at him again, he had already quickly hidden in the chaos spectrum. Everything was going according to Xiaoling Yu's plan. Fortunately, Xiaoling Yu had a divine spiritual treasure. Otherwise, even if he was in existence who was invincible under the divine spiritual treasure, he would not have the slightest hope of taking away the dark golden box under the nose of the divine spiritual demon. After entering the chaos spectrum, Xiaoling Yu first stabilized his qi and blood, then let out a long breath of turbid air, and then took out the dark golden box. The box was heavy in his hand, and it looked dull and ordinary. Xiaoling Yu studied it for a long time, but he still could not find a way to open it. The box was not locked, and it looked like two pieces of the box were fastened together, but it could not be opened. However, there were small and special runes on the box, and they looked similar to the runes on the two stone doors at the entrance. If he guessed correctly, it would probably take a lot of preparation to open this dark golden box, and it was impossible to complete it in a short time. After studying it for a while, Shaolin Yu could only helplessly put away the dark golden box and think of a way to open it after leaving this place. Outside the primal chaos spectrum, the towering demon lost its target once more. It appeared even more furious. Unlike before, perhaps because it had lost the treasure it was guarding, it did not petrify again. After angrily looking around, it began to wander aimlessly. Shaolin Yu wasn't sure what kind of abilities the heaven-reaching demon possessed on the 4th level. Thus, even though the heaven-reaching demon had already disappeared, he didn't dare to rush out. He waited patiently in the chaos spectrum. While waiting, he naturally continued to study the one-finger demon subduing art. After waiting for thousands of years in the primal chaos spectrum and half a year in the outside world, Shaolin Yu finally saw a cultivator passing by. That cultivator passed by the location of the primal chaos spectrum, but did not attract the heaven-reaching evil demon, which made Shaolin Yu feel relieved. After waiting for another 2 cultivators to pass by, Shaolin Yu boldly exited the chaos spectrum and randomly chose a direction to continue searching. What Shaolin Yu didn't know was that he had brought a lot of trouble to the experts who entered the 4th floor of the wind-sealing demon pagoda by luring the heaven-reaching demon pagoda alive. The heaven-piercing devil was probably angry that the treasure it was guarding had been taken away. It wandered around, and as long as it bumped into a cultivator, it would chase and kill them. Unless the cultivator was faster than it, or could completely hide their tracks like Shaolin Yu, it would not rest until it was dead. As time passed, the news of the cave left behind by an ancient expert quickly spread throughout heaven-reaching Sacred Island. Due to the existence of communication magic treasures, the news spread extremely quickly. More and more experts of heaven-reaching Sacred Island came here one after another and came to the demon-sealing pagoda. Naturally, there was no lack of heaven-reaching experts among them. It was worth mentioning that the stone door opened by Zhang Fang and Yitai was always open and showed no signs of closing immediately. It was as if it would never close again. The instigators of all this, Zhang Fang and Yitai, also entered the demon-sealing pagoda after their bodies recovered. Their cultivations weren't weak, and they worked together. As long as they didn't take the initiative to provoke other experts or casually activate the petrified demons, they wouldn't encounter too much danger. Shaolin Yu had already gained a lot. Even if he left now, he wouldn't feel that it was a pity. Shaolin Yu hadn't found the stairs to the 5th floor, and there were already heaven-reaching demons on the 4th floor. The floors above were definitely more dangerous. Perhaps there would be a large number of heaven-reaching demons on the 5th floor. Therefore, after Shaolin Yu found the stairs to the 3rd floor, he resolutely walked down. However, what Shaolin Yu didn't expect was that as soon as he arrived at the entrance of the demon-sealing pagoda, he suddenly felt a powerful aura from outside. As he hurriedly dodged, Shaolin Yu saw a middle-aged cultivator with a beard rushing into the demon-sealing pagoda on a fierce tiger. The cultivator also noticed Shaolin Yu and quickly approached him, saying, "Brother Shao, I didn't expect to see you here. Quickly escape with me." The newcomer was Shingongbao, who was riding on a black-dotted tiger. However, as a heaven-reaching powerhouse, Shingongbao looked a little embarrassed at this moment. "Fellow Daoist-chan, what's wrong?" Shaolin Yu asked in surprise as he followed Shingongbao into the dark depths of the 1st floor. Hui and Chang'e came in. "They're right behind me," Shingongbao replied as he sped up with Shaolin Yu. "Shingongbao, if you don't return the 2 sacred laurel fruits to us, we swear that we won't let you go." As soon as Shingongbao's words fell, Hui's angry voice reverberated through the air. Shaolin Yu's heart trembled when he heard this. If Hui and Chang'e knew that he was here, they definitely wouldn't let him go so easily. "Fellow Daoist-chan, let me go first. I can hide." "They won't be able to find me," Shaolin Yu said to Shingongbao. Now that Hui and Chang'e had come in, Shaolin Yu naturally didn't want to stay in the demon-sealing pagoda any longer. Shaolin Yu had experienced the power of Hui's sun-shooting bow and Chang'e's ice seal. Even a heaven-reaching powerhouse like Shingongbao could only flee at the sight of them. Xiaoling Yu didn't have the courage to face the couple. Can you take me with you to hide? Shingongbao asked. This. I can't. My invisibility skill can only be used on myself. It doesn't work on others, Xiaoling Yu said, shaking his head. Shingongbao's eyes rolled a few times. As he flew at top speed, he patted Xiaoling Yu's shoulder and said, "Brother, you can't just focus on yourself. As the saying goes, share blessings and endure misfortune together. You also had a part in stealing the sacred laurel fruits. Now that the couple has come out to seek revenge, how can you just watch me face them alone?" Xiaoling Yu smiled bitterly. He thought that Shingongbao was shameless enough to talk about honor. However, he said helplessly, "Fellow Taoist Shin, even if I accompany you, we can't beat the couple. It's better to escape so that we won't be wiped out. Fellow Taoist, don't worry. If I escape and you are killed by the couple, I will definitely avenge you when I succeed in my cultivation in the future." Shingongbao also scolded Xiaoling Yu secretly, but he still rapped Xiaoling Yu with his skill and said, "The environment here is special. If you use your invisibility skill, we may be able to defeat the couple. Moreover, I think there must be treasures here. If we join forces, we can definitely get a lot of benefits. Brother, don't be in a hurry to leave." Wrapped by Shingongbao's skill, Xiaoling Yu could not enter the chaotic spectrum at all. He could only follow Shingongbao. Xiaoling Yu could not help but feel a little regretful. When he saw Shingongbao just now, he should have immediately hidden in the chaotic spectrum. However, he just said hello to the old scoundrel. How could he expect that the old scoundrel was followed by Hou-Yi and Chang-Yi? It was useless to regret, so Xiaoling Yu had to teach Shingongbao his previous experience of coming in and pointed out the stairs to the second floor. As soon as the two of them reached the stairs, an earth-shattering arrow whizzed toward them with a heart-palpitating power. Fortunately, Xiaoling Yu and Shingongbao were both very clever people. They went up to the second floor first. Otherwise, they would be in danger under the attack of the deadly arrows. There is nothing good on the second floor. Go directly to the third floor, and then to the fourth floor. However, there is a demon in the heavenly reaching realm on the fourth floor. After reaching the second floor, Xiaoling Yu did not stop at all. After reminding Shingongbao verbally, he pointed up the stairs to the third floor to Shingongbao. Shingongbao speed was extremely fast, and the space pressure on the second and third floors had almost no effect on a heavenly reaching realm master like him. Therefore, he quickly came to the fourth floor under the guidance of Xiaoling Yu. The pitch-black space on the second, third, and fourth floors also restricted the divine sense of a heavenly reaching realm master. Therefore, it was difficult for Hou-Yi and Chang-Yi to lock onto Xiaoling Yu and Shingongbao and chase after them. After walking around the fourth floor for an hour, Xiaoling Yu suggested, "Now that we have gotten rid of the couple, we should be absolutely safe if we go downstairs and leave this demon ceiling tower." "Brother, you think too simply of the couple." Shingongbao shook his head and replied. "What do you mean?" Xiaoling Yu was puzzled. "We have already gotten rid of the couple. With their temper, they will definitely guard the stairs to the fourth floor. If we go now, we will only end up being shot to death by Hou-Yi's arrow." After explaining, Shingongbao withdrew his power and returned Xiaoling Yu's freedom. He continued, "If Brother Xiao doesn't believe me, you can go to the stairs to the fourth floor now. However, if you are really shot to death, don't blame me for not warning you." Although Xiaoling Yu did not believe Shingongbao's words, he did not dare to really try. If Hou-Yi was really hiding at the stairs and he was caught off guard and shot by the sun-shooting bow, his life might really be in danger. "Brother, do you know the origin of this demon ceiling tower?" Shingongbao changed the topic and asked. Chapter 717. I'm not sure. It's said that this demon ceiling tower was an ancient treasure used to suppress demons, Shingongbao replied vaguely. What's the level of the strongest demon suppressed here? Xiaoling Yu asked. The strongest is estimated to be at the peak of the late stage of Heaven Ascension. Its strength should be ranked in the top 3 on Heaven Ascension Island, Shingongbao replied. It's actually so powerful. Then we'd better think of a way to leave here first, Xiaoling Yu said with a frown. No hurry, no hurry. Even if the strongest demon is in this demon ceiling tower, it's definitely on the 8th or 9th floor. It won't be so easy for us to bump into it, Shen Gongbao said indifferently. But even if we encounter a large number of demons, it'll be difficult for us to deal with them, Xiaoling Yu said worriedly. I'm not afraid. Brother Xiao, what are you afraid of? Shen Gongbao asked. I can hide, but I'm afraid that I'll be trapped here and can't go out, Xiaoling Yu replied. It won't. Don't worry. When I came here, I saw that the power of the stone door has been exhausted and can no longer be closed. As for the demon ceiling tower, you can also enter and leave as you wish. Shen Gongbao waved his hand to comfort him, and then said, even if we want to go out, we have to be able to hide it from the couple. At this time, if they're guarding the door on the 4th floor and we rashly go back, I'm afraid it'll be more dangerous. Xiaoling Yu nodded and didn't say anything more. After wandering around the 4th floor for a few days, although they didn't meet Ho Yi and Chang Yi, they bumped into that Heaven Ascension demon again. However, this time, with Shen Gongbao by his side, Xiaoling Yu didn't have to hide in the chaos spectrum. However, for safety's sake, Xiaoling Yu took out the Heaven Ascension spiritual treasure level jade slip and let himself be enveloped by a faint golden light curtain. The Heaven Ascension demon seemed to recognize Xiaoling Yu. As soon as the two sides met, its big iron rod smashed over without hesitation. When the big iron rod smashed over, it also carried a mighty force, as if it had sucked out everything in a large area, and crazily squeezed Xiaoling Yu and Xiaoling Yu. Vile spawn, you dare to be impudent in front of me? I'll destroy you today. Shen Gongbao seemed to be full of confidence. With a wave of his hand, the momentum of his whole body also carried an invisible force to meet the big iron cudgel. Immediately, the speed at which the large metal cudgel smashed down decreased by a lot, and its power also weakened abruptly. Then, the black-spotted tiger roared and charged out. Shen Gongbao and the black-spotted tiger soon gained the upper hand, while the heaven-reaching demon fled after a while. Since there were no treasures that he needed to protect, that heaven-reaching demon didn't seem to have any reason to fight to the death. Shen Gongbao did not intend to fight the sky-reaching evil demon to the death. After all, the sky-reaching evil demon did not have any benefits. Even if he killed it here, not only would he not gain any benefits, but it was also very likely that he or his mount would be injured. It was purely a thankless task. As shrewd as Shen Gongbao was, he would never engage in a meaningless fight. Xiaoling Yu had finally witnessed some of Shen Gongbao's strength in the battle with the sky-piercing demon. Judging from Shen Gongbao's calm expression and steady aura, Shen Gongbao should be much stronger than the sky-reaching evil demon. Even so, with such a powerful sky-reaching evil demon accompanying him, Xiaoling Yu did not dare to be careless in the slightest, because this sky-reaching evil demon was really not trustworthy. By now, many sky-reaching evil demons had entered the demon ceiling tower, and there was basically nothing left on the 4th floor. After searching with Shen Gongbao for more than half a month, they did not find any more restrictive light balls. However, after another month, the two of them finally found the stairs to the 5th floor. At the entrance of the stairs, there were 2 petrified demons and many sky-reaching evil demons. Many of these powerhouses had arrived here long ago, but they did not dare to go to the stairs, because everyone was sure that the 2 petrified demons definitely had the strength of the sky-reaching evil demons. The reason why they did not make a move or leave was that they wanted to wait here for more and more powerhouses to come, so that they could besiege them together. After Xiaoling Yu and Shen Gongbao arrived, Shen Gongbao first looked at them, and then said loudly, "What are you waiting for? There are only 2 petrified demons here, and we have more than 10 masters, many of whom are sky-reaching evil demons. Can't we defeat these 2 demons?" Shen Gongbao's words made everyone a little tempted, but they did not make the first move. Come, let me make the first move." Shen Gongbao walked to the entrance of the stairs with a very righteous look, and on the way, he even rolled up his sleeves. The other cultivators were secretly ashamed, and quietly followed behind Shen Gongbao, as if they were ready to make a move. Shingongbao walked to the entrance of the stairs, and without saying a word, he waved his hand and shot out two beams of divine light, hitting one of the petrified demons respectively. Bang! Bang! Two explosions came one after another, and gravel sputtered in all directions. The two petrified demons were revealed, and immediately roared angrily, as if warning everyone to leave quickly. While roaring, the two demons had already madly raised their momentum, and in an instant, they had reached the sky-reaching evil demons. The surrounding space began to tremble, and waves of invisible mighty force came from all directions. The two petrified demons had already awakened, and as they raised their momentum, they each held a big iron rod, and swept it toward the powerhouses who surrounded them. Suddenly, the invisible force was like a raging wave, sweeping towards everyone with the force of a hurricane. All the cultivators attacked together, either attacking or defending, but from their posture, it could be seen that they were really going to fight. At this time, Shingongbao was riding on the black-spotted tiger, and after pretending to launch a wave of attacks, he quietly retreated. This guy was always only responsible for stirring up trouble, but he would never sincerely solve it. Fortunately, there were quite a lot of powerhouses gathered here. Excluding Shingongbao and Xiaolingyu, there were 3 sky-reaching evil demons, and nearly 20 holy god experts. They could deal with the 2 sky-reaching evil demons, but it would take a long time, and some of the powerhouses were bound to be injured or killed. As the fight went on, everyone noticed that Shingongbao had retreated. Apart from cursing him in their hearts, they could only bite the bullet and continue to fight. If everyone retreated like Shingongbao, they would not be able to go to the 5th floor. These guys are so cowardly. They could have defeated me, but they all stood still, forcing me to use some extreme means. Shingongbao stroked the tuft of beard on his chin and said proudly. Xiaolingyu glanced at Shingongbao contemptuously and said, "If fellow Taoist Chen had joined the fight, I think we would have entered the 5th floor much earlier." Shingongbao shook his head and said, "Why are you in such a hurry? Anyway, we will go in sooner or later. They won't go in much earlier than us. Let them practice first, lest they be at a loss when they encounter a large number of sky-reaching evil demons." Shingongbao could find a high-sounding reason for any action under any circumstances. The fight here is so loud. Will it attract the couple? Xiaolingyu asked worriedly. The possibility is very small, Shingongbao replied. After 20 hours of fighting, another sky-reaching evil demon came and killed the 2 evil demons. At the moment when the 2 evil demons fell, Shingongbao's black-spotted tiger suddenly moved forward, but its target was not the 5th floor, but a fallen evil demon. The black-spotted tiger came to the side of an evil demon in an instant. Shingongbao, who was ready to fight, put away the evil demon's big iron cudgel and said shamelessly, "This cudgel is good. If it is given to a weapon refining tenchi, maybe he can refine a sky-reaching spiritual treasure. That's a gain. It's not a waste for me to risk my life to wake them up." The other sky-reaching evil demons despised Shingongbao's behavior, but they had been fighting for a long time and had consumed a lot of energy. It was not suitable to fight with Shingongbao, a sky-reaching evil demon. Moreover, their target was the possible treasures on the 5th floor, so they ignored Shingongbao and went to the 5th floor. Shingongbao came back riding the black-spotted tiger and said to Xiaolingyu, "Let's go. We will definitely gain a lot on the 5th floor." Xiaolingyu smiled bitterly and said, "I guess fellow Taoist Chen has gained a lot. I don't dare to compete with fellow Taoist Chen, and I don't expect fellow Taoist Chen to share my treasures." Shingongbao's expression did not change, and he said, "The treasures belong to the virtuous. People like me will naturally get more treasures." Shingongbao, die! An arrow cut through the dark space and shot toward Shingongbao at high speed. Shingongbao used his power to wrap Xiaolingyu, who was about to hide in the chaos spectrum, and then threw out a celestial talisman to block the fatal arrow. Then, he rushed directly to the 5th floor with Xiaolingyu. The couple really came. "Bad luck, I lost another celestial talisman." Shingongbao complained when he reached the 5th floor. Then, he walked quickly on the 5th floor of the demon ceiling pagoda with Xiaolingyu, not daring to stop at the stairs. From the looks of it, after the couple comes up, they will still be guarding the entrance to the 5th and 4th floors. If this goes on, even if we go up to the 9th floor, we won't be able to escape their pursuit. Xiaolingyu said with an unhappy expression. If Shingongbao hadn't wrapped himself with his power, Xiaolingyu could have hidden in the chaos spectrum. Shingongbao made it clear that even if he died, he would drag someone down with him. However, it was not one of the couple, but Xiaolingyu. With the couple's strength, they may be able to stay on the 5th floor for a while. But if they go to the 6th floor, it is not realistic for them to stay in one place and not move. As long as they are discovered by the demon masters here, they will be besieged. Shingongbao still looked confident. The space pressure on the 5th floor increased a lot. If it weren't for Shingongbao's help, Xiaolingyu would not even be able to run here and could only barely walk. Chapter 7:18. The dark space on the 5th floor had a great restriction on the practitioner's divine thoughts. Xiaolingyu's divine thoughts could only reach less than 10 feet away from his body. Even for Shingongbao, who was a divine master, it was very good that his divine thoughts could cover a distance of 60 feet away from him. However, there were much more demons on the 5th floor than on the 4th floor. Almost every distance they walked, they could see a demon stone statue. However, not all of the demon stone statues on the 5th floor had restrictive light balls behind them. It was impossible to tell how large the space on the 5th floor was. After entering, they did not touch the demon stone statues, but carefully searched for them. The black-spotted tiger's steps were very heavy, and like its owner, it looked back 3 times with every step, constantly looking at everything around it, just like a thief. After searching for a long time, the two finally found a restrictive light ball. However, what made the two of them depressed was that there wasn't only one fiend stone sculpture beside the sphere of light, but a total of 4. The 4 demon stone statues were guarding the 4 sides of the restrictive light ball. If they wanted to open the restrictive light ball and get the treasure inside, they would definitely alarm the 4 demon stone statues, and the strength of these 4 demons was probably in the Divine Master realm. Shingongbao and the black-spotted tiger were both in the Divine Master realm, but they could probably only protect themselves against the 4 demons. "I have an idea," Xiaolingyu said, stroking his chin. "Let's hear it," Shingongbao said. "I'll hide first. Fellow Taoist Shin and the black-spotted tiger will lead the 4 demons away. After I break the restrictive light ball and get the treasure inside, I'll go find fellow Taoist Shin," Xiaolingyu said. "Ah, this is a good idea." Shingongbao seemed to think very seriously, and then said, "But if the black-spotted tiger and I leave, what if Brother Xiao can't break the restrictive light ball?" Xiaolingyu said, "Fellow Taoist Shin, have you forgotten that I have the destruction heavenly eye?" Shingongbao showed a look of understanding, and said, "Yes, yes, yes. Brother Xiao has such a powerful attack as the destruction heavenly eye, so breaking the restrictive light ball is definitely not a problem. However, Brother Xiao's divine sense can't cover too far here. Brother Xiao, how will you meet me later?" "Why would I meet you after I got the treasure?" Was he looking for trouble for himself? Xiaolingyu thought so in her heart, but she would never say it out loud. Shingongbao was not a kind person. He forcibly used his power to wrap her up. How could he work for her? He must be thinking of using the concealment technique to help him at the critical moment. Xiaolingyu did not speak again. Shingongbao thought for a moment and said, "Actually, we can do it this way. Let the black-spotted tiger stay, and I will lead the 4 demons away. Even if we are separated, I can still find you by the mental connection with it. Wouldn't it be too dangerous for fellow Taoist Shin to lure away 4 evil demons at once?" Xiaolingyu asked with seemingly good intentions. "Even if it's dangerous, I still have to go. I can't let Brother Xiao take the risk, right?" Shingongbao had a righteous look on his face. After he finished speaking, he asked Black Dot Tiger and Xiaolingyu to stay far away. After hiding more than 1,000 feet away, Xiaolingyu and Black Dot Tiger could no longer see Shingongbao and the 4 evil demons. After waiting for a while, a few explosions suddenly came from that direction. Then, they heard the roars of the evil demons, and the sounds gradually faded away. Black Dot Tiger then pounced toward the location of the restriction light ball. Xiaoling Yu naturally followed closely. At this moment, the roars of the 4 evil demons had not disappeared, which meant that they were still nearby. They had to protect the restriction light ball, so naturally, they would not chase too far. Shingongbao would definitely find a way to delay them for a while. Xiaoling Yu first tried to attack the restriction light ball with the chaos seal and the one-finger demon subduing art, but he did not break through. The 4 evil demons seemed to have sensed that something was wrong here and had already begun to move over. Black Dot Tiger also scratched a few times with its claws, but it also did not break through the defense of the restriction light ball. Xiaoling Yu had to launch the attack of the Heavenly Eye of Destruction again. Fortunately, he had filled the Heavenly Eye between his eyebrows with energy when he hid in the Chaos Spectrum. The bombardment of the Blood Light of Destruction destroyed the restriction light ball. However, before Xiaoling Yu could make a move, Black Dot Tiger had already swallowed the treasure in the restriction light ball into its stomach. Xiaoling Yu did not even see what the treasure inside looked like. Xiaoling Yu finally understood why Shingongbao would rather lure away the 4 evil demons alone and leave Black Dot Tiger here. At this moment, the 4 evil demons had already caught up. Black Dot Tiger spat out a white circle of light again to wrap Xiaoling Yu, and then fled with Xiaoling Yu at top speed. What made Xiaoling Yu helpless was that the white circle of light with countless black dots was very solid. Not only could he not break it, but he also could not hide in the Chaos Spectrum. The speed of the Black Tiger was very fast, at least much faster than the 4 heaven-piercing demons. Therefore, it only took less than 100 breaths of time to escape from danger. In order to chase after Black Dot Tiger and Xiaoling Yu who had broken through the restriction light ball, the 4 evil demons gave up on chasing Shingongbao. Shingongbao naturally escaped danger easily, and he quickly used the mental connection with Black Dot Tiger to find Xiaoling Yu and Black Dot Tiger's location. After losing their protection, the 4 evil demons did not fall into petrification again. They seemed to have gone crazy and began to sweep through the 5th floor of the demon ceiling tower. Moreover, they were always together, and for a time, they were invincible. The experts of the heaven-reaching Sacred Island who entered the 5th floor all fled at the sight of them. Only when Shingongbao arrived did Black Dot Tiger obediently spit out the treasure it had swallowed. It was a jade bottle, and inside it were 5 beads that looked like colored glass balls. Not bad, not bad. Shingongbao had a satisfied expression. He removed the restriction on the mouth of the bottle and pulled out the stopper. Immediately, a medicinal fragrance filled the air. So it's 5 celestial spiritual pills. I didn't take the risk to lure the enemy in vain. Shingongbao praised. Then he looked at Xiaoling Yu's slightly unhappy expression, and took out one of the pills, saying, "This celestial spiritual pill is very useful to me. Brother, you don't mind if I take some more, right? It's very useful to you, but not to me." Although he was angry, the treasure was already in Shingongbao's hands. It was not easy to get this miser to give one of the pills. Xiaoling Yu naturally would not be too greedy. He immediately took the colorful celestial spiritual pill and sealed it in a small jade bottle. Then, he naturally continued to search. 2 months later, he found another restriction light ball. However, as soon as he saw the restriction light ball, Shingongbao and Xiaoling Yu tacitly turned around and walked away. Around the restriction light ball were 8 stone demons. Shingongbao was a cautious and cowardly cultivator. Even if he had the cultivation of the Heaven Ascension stage, he would definitely not suggest that he attract 8 Heaven Ascension stage demons. For the next 5 years, Xiaoling Yu followed Shingongbao around the 5th floor of the demon ceiling tower. Occasionally, they would come across some restriction light balls. However, most of the restriction light balls were guarded by many demon stone statues. Not only did Xiaoling Yu and Shingongbao not dare to have wishful thinking, but the other Heaven Ascension stage powerhouses also looked at them inside. This demon ceiling tower is really powerful. It has suppressed so many Heaven Ascension stage demons and sealed so many treasures. Xiaoling Yu sighed in admiration. Ha, if you knew who the original owner of this demon sealing tower was, you wouldn't say that. Shingongbao laughed. Please enlighten me, fellow Taoist Qin, Shaolin Yu said modestly. In the distant ancient times, when the universe was still in chaos, the master of this devil-sealing pagoda already existed. Before the worlds were divided into their own realms, that ancient almighty had already reached the immortal realm and ascended to the higher realms. Before that almighty person ascended, countless demons appeared in the cultivation world and almost destroyed the newly formed world. Only then did that almighty person refine this demon-sealing tower and suppress all the demons. In fact, this Heaven Ascension Sacred Island was created by that almighty person with great magical power. Shingongbao explained without much detail. Fellow Taoist Qin is really knowledgeable. You even know about such a strange ancient matter. Shaolin Yu praised. This is what my master said. Even a powerhouse like my master was full of admiration when talking about that ancient almighty person. People like us are not even worthy to carry his shoes. Shingongbao said with a calm expression. He didn't tell Shaolin Yu the name of that ancient almighty person. It was unknown whether it was because his master didn't make it clear or because Shingongbao didn't want to say it. Since this is a place where demons are suppressed and sealed, why didn't that ancient almighty person completely seal this place and leave a way for younger cultivators to come in? Shaolin Yu asked, a little puzzled. I don't know about this. Master didn't say anything either. This mystery can only be found on the 9th floor. However, who dares to go up to the 9th floor before reaching the immortal stage? Not to mention the 9th floor, the number of cultivators who can go up to the 8th floor can be counted with one hand. Shingongbao shook his head. If we find the stairs to the 6th floor, do we go up? Shaolin Yu asked again. That depends on whether we can kill the demons guarding the stairs. If they are killed, we can go up and take a look. Shingongbao said casually. The space on the 5th floor was very large. Coupled with the fact that everyone's speed was limited, it made this world seem even more vast. As more and more restriction light balls were broken, and most of the demons were not killed after breaking through the petrification, they lost the things they were guarding and swept around, causing great trouble for everyone. However, so much time had passed, and the number of Heaven Ascension powerhouses who heard the news kept increasing. Now, the news of the demon sealing tower's appearance had almost spread throughout the entire Heaven Ascension Sacred Island. This matter had also become a major event in the hearts of the powerhouses of Heaven Ascension Sacred Island. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.